Welcome back to the SCL. We have more action this week, though it's a bit of a relief week, it feels like, for most of these teams. Typically
Right.
a bye week, we would call it. It still is a great week for these teams. So we're seeing here today Dallas of Clemson and Converse Purple to make up for their match they missed last week and to supplement it with a good broadcast this week. My name's Infinos, joined here by Mick, aka Dallas, the man with a hat and a hoodie. Wonderful combo for you today here, Dallas. We're super excited to get this one underway.
We most definitely are, man. Consider what these two teams have already brought to the table in the course of the season. I mean, obviously, Converse being one of the heavy hitters, we were kind of expecting coming into the season, knowing what they had capable of. But knowing Clemson, obviously, a team that I always feel like has kind of found themselves in the middle of the road, but has always managed to keep themselves in that kind of T1 competitive kind of area. So I'm curious to see really what they can do to really kind of put themselves on the table, really go ahead and face one of those top dogs here today, especially on broadcast. And especially giving them, an extra week to figure things out because I want to see this squad really start to lighten up a little bit, especially after seeing them on land. I don't remember if this is the entire roster. I don't think it is, but knowing that at least there's going to be some level of synergy to play with here today, I want to see what they got to bring to the table.
Yeah, they were kind of an unsung team for that lane as
Right.
well. They kind of came out of nowhere and performed to a level that we weren't really expecting them stepping into it. And they surprised us and put on a really good show, especially that Niner Esports matchup. I think that one was some that still kind of sings in the back of my mind that we were excited
Yep.
to get into. And we're really shocked by the precedent it brought forward. But speaking of that and speaking of precedent, we need to jump on over to our map selections and see what maps these teams have decided to step into. For the looks of things, it's about standard, except for the fact that Icebox actually didn't get banned out almost immediately, and it was put into play, picked up by Clemson. And that means it's going to be our second and a guaranteed map. Who would have known with how much people hate Icebox? We'd actually see it here today.
And even then, I'm also just generally confused of where the hatred of Icebox is really kind
I
of
agree.
spewed up over time. Because I mean, really, we've seen so many teams play this map consistently, especially during its actual original iteration. It was at a point where it was probably the highest picked map in the game to coincide with Ascent. So knowing that it just like for a long time, I guess those tube changes just really made players just feel a little bit of a different way, just because people couldn't slip through the cracks as easy as they used to. But I mean, now seeing how this game's going, seeing how these teams work now, and even then knowing that we do get Icebox guaranteed, I'm hoping to see that obviously this map will give a bit of a taste for what the season could be to come because we haven't really seen compositions with this map too much. Obviously, I mean, knowing the kind of differences that have been made, the patches that have come out, I mean, all kinds of the sorts. I want to see really what Icebox presents now in the collegiate scene because I mean, with pros, obviously they don't care anything's free game, but here within the collegiate scene specifically, it always just feels like that's a bit of a sore topic now, and obviously it's got to be touched upon every now and again.
I mean, well, Icebox been confirmed to be stepping out of the pool soon, right? Or eventually, right? So this is something that the teams are trying to get maybe some use of before it takes its grand to do exit, and we have to figure out what map steps into it and how they're going to figure out how to play it. Please, for the love of everything, please let it not be Fracture. I will lose my mind if that is the case. But Icebox, I think it's a lot of poor hate for a lot of people for absolutely no reason. If anything, hate the
Right.
map Abide. This map has been seen too often. We did see some interesting variations for agent selection just last week, Dallas, and we harped on that for quite a little bit. We weren't super happy with that, but at least it
Yeah.
wasn't a mirror composition. And the ending result, despite the super, I would say, lopsided affair that was that first half, was followed up by another lopsided affair that was the second, leading us to that
Yeah.
precipice of OT. And we had to see such a really close matchup when honestly it didn't seem like that was going to be the case right off the rip. Will that hold true for a Clemson versus Converse Purple affair? I think there's a shot of it, but the best
Yeah.
chance would be on the map of Haven. And that means you have to survive those first two maps by getting at least one win to even see that three objective map step into play.
Right. I mean, knowing that obviously Haven is that map where it feels a little bit one sided, especially when the teams start to get the hang of stuff. I mean, they really start to steamroll. I mean, all things considered. But I mean, looking at Bind specifically, that's a map where I feel like even as things are super close, they're very quick. So I feel like no matter what, this map should be able to fly by. But whether or not we actually see a relatively early solution or a relatively early conclusion is still going to be kind of something that we're going to be figuring out because it is going to be that first map. I talked about it last week. There's a couple players here and there that just had to get warmed up over the course of the night. But looking at this here today, that is going to be a very big factor going into the time being the first map. Because if you're not ready for that, if you're not warmed up, you're going to see players who are over aggressing very early, looking for those shower fights, looking for those B long shots, looking for those avenues to just find themselves some easy early picks and make these rounds just go that much faster where it feels like you can never really get a chance to get up off the ground.
This is a player we highlighted a lot early in the season, Dallas, which is how exceptional they were as an individual, whether it was on Haven or whether it was back on Bind. Seems like they are fulfilling their initiator role to a T. That's something that you need for your roster. Will this be capable for Milk Mango to be able to match up to the same repertoire, same history? We'll have to see. The Bind is definitely the map where you'll need to prove that you can do so. That Sentinel difference highlighted with that chamber put in play. Avian will have, well, the ease of access to be able to rotate very quickly, to be that soft defending player on the attacking side, to sit inside showers, maybe poke for information, play a little bit of trademark down to make sure nobody can wrap and play for map control and through spices if your team's pushing off towards the B site. You don't really have that as an option for Clemson Orange. In fact, there's not even a Viper in play, which is something that has been so pivotal to so many teams on the map of Bind. Typically, if you see that Sky, which Zuko is bringing to the board, you'd have a Viper right next to them, sitting alongside them inside of Garden, off towards Octagon on the B side. You have them at tertiary off towards A to assist with a toxic screen, especially when it comes to the attacking side. No, double duelist alongside Halo Jorge on that brim, which means that stim is going to find a whole lot more potential impact having those two front runners engage onto site so quickly to try to put that pressure on, and it's the perfect half to start with it as they'll start on the attack.
Yeah, already even then looking over the lineage over here towards the B site, seeing if they can find something to overexpose itself towards those fountains. But I mean, it's the pistol round. You're not going to see too much exposure here. You're not going to see anything super crazy. But the one thing that's going to be obviously sticking out is going to be this wraparound coming in through A main. You got so much information letting you know that, okay, these guys are already pushed up. They're already looking for that control. You have all the time in the world. So take your time,
Spike
get your
down,
shots off, so you can find at least one. They were prepared there for a second off Icy to get that exchange, but they just were not ready for the second one. Knowing that it's a player knocked down, that could be a ghost recovered, and that could be a hit now being transferred over towards the A site, knowing that they had a player retreat because there wasn't enough reinforcement there to really give them a good fight. But even then, you can see now the adjustments coming through, looking for it, squeaking up, trying to find anybody to get themselves up, and here it is.
Spike
Converse
down,
is playing this so well, catching these Clemson players off guard.
They know they need to start to prove into the face of Clemson Orange. They know they fought for map control through spices. They like to take that space and they want to engage as quick as possible. And Clemson just haven't really found a perfect answer for it. It is just the first round. There's another 11 they'll have after this to try to figure out what went wrong and maybe adjust and start to play in with that Sentinel role.
30 seconds left.
Maybe the lack of it here for Clemson Orange to try to keep that map control fully in their favor. Converse will sit here on the B site quite squarely. You leave your Gecko off towards A, which means they can toss a mosh pit if it's available to keep that showers TP away. But Clemson Orange will unfurl onto the site, putting pressure off towards Elbow and even find a first blood actually on site against Avian. They attempted to escape out from main hall for some unknown reason. Now puts into an even 3 versus 3 as you'll have to have your Gecko rotate quite swiftly over. One player inside of Elbow. They should toss their recon bolt in through the gap. There it is, up and over the top. One player's been pipped and spotted. Now Blitz is trying to get the angle forward, but can't. King gets the frag instead, and Arctic gets taken down just the same. The Ghost has been coming out victorious now for Clemson Orange, and that was a weapon that was collected early as the loss through the Spices route. As Puffin, 3 kills already in the round, hunting for more. Just Zuko's remaining time is running out. You've got to go in fast as Zuko plays the wraparound game. Puffin can't stick this one in time, and the damage has already been done. Clemson hold on to get the first round win.
Beautiful attempt from Puffin coming out, but just so close, yet no cigar. I mean, seeing how things are working there, knowing that the clicks and knowing that where the player placement was, but just not having really the angle to really just take that fight and go for that 50-50 ring around the rosy. There's just not too much you can really do there. Great plays there from Clemson, especially more so Ping, able to go ahead, push up, play a more aggressive, understand that you have that double duelist role. You're already on site, Spike's already down. Just take your life down with the cause, so make sure you take down a couple with you. And that's what you're really looking for. Curious to see how this double duelist is going to be doing on the defensive side of the map, because obviously here early now, having this first round winning, having the better guns to work with, you're going to be seeing some more aggression coming through. But it's all Zuko right now, looking to open things up, having a little bit of assistance there, and just playing a little defensively, while everybody else wraps around, goes through B long, because they know nobody's going to be holding that with these pistols in hand to make sure they get themselves another clean plant going on.
There's Wingman stepping forward to get that plant down. The 6th essential player for Clemson Orange's attack.
Spike
Make
planted.
matters worse, now only facing 2 on the defensive side of Converse. Icy steps up, Sheriff shot to the head of Halo Jorge, but it's not going to go too much further. Transgressions will go punished, and it's the Guardian from Zuko to find you out and Avian alongside you. 2-0 start for Clemson Orange, as you would expect, and only losing 1 weapon and being able to recollect any of the potential that it had. It still brings a whole lot of firepower heading into round 3. We'll see Converse bring everything possible to the board. Everyone with a rifle, 2 players not having full armor. Besides that, you got a couple ult pips for Puffin that are quite close, and an orbital barrage stepping into round 4 could be exceptionally powerful for Converse to keep Clemson offside.
Yeah, and even then more so just kind of dwindling down that timer, letting that Brim play the post play. Because we talked about the lack of a Viper here, and we've seen a bit of an idea. The Viper's starting to kind of fade out a little bit with only one snake bite in hand now rather than two, which has been implemented for a while. But even then, still, you have to consider what's going to be working with here. I mean, already a nice little opening pick from Epoch, going ahead, pushing through, looking to kind of grab that space that we talked about so darn much and followed it up once more. So Clemson, even though we haven't seen them really have a full buy across the board, here looking at the third round, it seems like the B side is just going to be their absolute home. They are really getting themselves comfy there. They're finding a lot of good picks to come through. And that B area of the map, just in that main entry, so they're going to have to really start to keep tabs on the side of Converse. So they want to really start to get this game under lock, because now in a 3v5 situation, you don't want to retake this too much. It's kind of the contemplation that you're working with right now, just because, well, you don't want to lose these guns. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at a fourth guaranteed as well.
Yeah, they're going to go ahead and sit back. They're just going to play for next round, a quick little cheeky save. Converse look at that saying, hey, we lost the first two. What's been going wrong? And I think the big answer here is going to be that double duelist composition alongside that Sky. It gives you the viability. Hey, you may be able to take down Epoch. You may be able to take down the Raze. That's so standard for this map, engaging in towards sight. But can you handle two duelists? Can you handle a secondary fighter right next to them to either always get the refrag or to take you down before you ever get the finishing blow on top of the damage you're already dealing to my secondary duelist right next to me? Combo that with that regrowth with that Sky, and it's as if no damage was ever dealt on that entry in from Clemson. The Converse are kind of at their wits' end, having that third round fall against them. How do they try to alleviate this concern stepping into round 4? You didn't get the ult orbs I was highlighting for Puff, and you didn't get the charges you were really hoping for. You got two players now that don't have rifles to work with, and you can't really say, hey, we need to meet and match the rest of the team. You need to die together. You need to stay together. You need to make sure those weapons are collectible so the team can stay solid and pretty. Avian has that headhunter, but can't say the same thing for your bottom frag player for Converse.
Yeah, most simply. I mean, not looking too hard here on the side of Converse, but I mean, finally looking to go ahead and create a bit of an establishment here early on. Even then, Arctic barely getting out with their life here to go things rolling. But I mean, that's just information at this point. That's a rifle you're trading out to somebody else if you did end up having one, just because of the circumstances at hand. You cannot really create much of a fight here, but even then still, we're seeing Clemson with things. It seems like they're possibly at a disadvantage. They still end up coming out on top. Once again, hitting this B site, looking for this aggression up towards B long. And they're at a point now where they've chose such a foundational spot of the map as while they can keep on hitting this B site, things ever don't work out for them. They can easily hit that TP, make a very quick transfer, knowing these players are just rapid through A on those spikes and then that spawn.
Last player standing.
Converse, they knew they weren't going to get a whole lot coming into this round, but did they think they were going to get absolutely nothing? I don't think that's the case. I mean, you had two players playing very well off towards square. You had a lot of potential pressure to take and get rid of the B push that Clemson have been so proud of and so effective with the last 3 rounds, now 4 rounds for their side, and yet nothing came of value for it. You even had the chance to TP and be able to wrap back around for a post plant, but you don't opt to take it. Epoch loses a fruitless fight, and for some, sorry, not Epoch, Icy loses a fruitless fight, and Blitz swings way too far deep, even though the smoke goes down in through long, and finds 0 impact alongside your Raze of Icy. Converse, 4 rounds now, back over to Clemson. You have to hope this one can make a difference, and Avian, not having gotten yet the Tour de Force, says, I'll buy the boomstick instead. Can that operator save graces? It's hard to say, especially if you don't play to the right side, but they'll move it off towards B, the only site Clemson or didn't even tease up to this point.
Right, I mean, they've just been doing it over and over again. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Every single time it feels like they at least get something by now, but it seems like Converse wants to keep on taking different angles from this. Finally, instead of pushing up, they hang back. They understand that now Clemson's going to kind of be on their edge a little bit whenever it comes around to pushing up in these main areas of the map. And then by that point, all that pressure, they're going to feel like they got themselves a nice breath of fresh air saying, where are these guys at when they're expecting these fights? They're expected to be on edge. And then finally, that moment of complacency hits when they're starting to push closer to that site, and that's when you see Converse making these fights and getting to these angles. Problem is, Arctic wasn't ready for that one, but yet you still have enough alleviation over here and enough space in the site, especially with the rotation coming through, to get that spike down with that double duelist, because, well, that's what you're doing. I feel like this double duelist is great on the attack, not only just in terms of an oppression, but also in terms of actually getting this spike down, because your Raze, while she's going to be blast packing everything, creating these spikes, your Jet's going to be rushing right through trying to do things, because Epoch is doing a great job of almost acting more of an initiator than a duelist, just being a catalyst for your spike plan.
Combo that with the guiding lights that came forward. It's a perfect combo. They didn't even realize Epoch had escaped out from showers just yet. That unknown factor created just so much success for Clemson Orange. They have to hold on to that. Great flash coming out from Blitz.
Standing.
They will fall from Avian's operator. But now they have to do it by themselves with a player in the unknown. Waiting to try to take them down, and the Headhunter just isn't going to outdo the plethora of rifle shots Zuko can send back your way. The Vandal comes out victorious, and Clemson go up to now 5 in a row with no answer from Converse. At least the round was the closest it's ever been. If it wasn't for the fact now they have no weapons to work with heading into round 6.
Yeah, rough round here for Converse coming up. But I mean, still, you're not worried about that operator on the side of Avian, at least, because you do have that tour de force to work with. So you have at least something to supplement that for a round going into the next one to make sure that you do have yourself a legitimate gun in the next round. But as it stands right now, that's going to be a bit of your foundation. You're looking for something here. And if there's a time to actually push up and maybe find a kill, this would be the time to do it when you have that operator, when you have a player to hold that angle, get the DP, get out, have players there on site to back them up, but they're bringing all that over to the B site once more, understandably so. But with the missed shot already coming down and Halo Ori trying to come on that flank and at least get something to work with against Icy, it's just not going to happen here. Good stance coming out from Converse, outstanding round start, all things considered, being 1-0. They could have found themselves 2 with the shot of that tour de force, but there's still ample time to get that done. A minute left on the clock. TP's right there to go ahead and hop the ship and go over to that A site, but you still have 2 players holding their ground, making sure that let's not overextend and get things up for free, because we don't want that plan to go down with no contention.
Yeah, they're deep within the position to sit by TP and take it, but Spike has not really started transgress off towards A whatsoever, or really joined them alongside that teleport option. Sitting now squarely inside of mid. The option for Hookah there for the taking. Icy with a quick flick to try to deal with the flash. Tries to get the showstopper out, but is shut down by their doppelganger Epoch. They want this B site, and they will not be forced away from it. Now knowing the weapons that are in play for Converse, they think they have the advantage. Wingman goes forward. It's cleared away by a Mosh sent by Blitz. Util for Util. Another one sent off towards main. The swing forward to get the plant down. They'll be forced away from sight now with the orbital barrage. Popping gets the frag on the top of it as well. Why was Milk Mango within it? I'm not sure. They'll pay the price, and Converse have found value in a round where it's sent like they should have had none.
10 seconds left.
As Puffin waits once more. Utility for the smoke placed down within sight.
Spike
Shock
planted.
dart is not enough to kill Ping, and the timing would have been short anyways. The 3 versus 2, and Arctic has to get it through the wall and does.
Last player standing.
Oh my
Safe.
God!
What is safe from Arctic?
Huge round coming out. I mean, considering I had nothing but stress
Thanks.
expressed from my face when I saw the fact that Converse did not want to cross at all whatsoever. They didn't want to find a wraparound. They wouldn't find a pinch of any means. They would be taking that fight on a 50-50 from the door, re-entering from spawn, which is an absolutely insane call. But to know that you finally get that first pick, you follow it up and just go back to back to back. It's a great way to get yourself not only on the board, but to get your team's morale back into this thing, knowing that somebody can shoot back. Especially Arctic, which, I mean, all things considered, hasn't had the best start, but is definitely here to play now. It's a bit awkward to see that Clemson, after losing their first round, they finally want to go ahead and take a second to figure out what exactly happened there with this timeout. Not really sure if that's what it's for, but, I mean, obviously there has to be another implication here. You're at the stage now where you've won 5 in a row. Converse are finally getting themselves around on the board, but it wasn't even off the back of a full buy. It was a thrifty for them. You had the majority of your players working with sheriffs. It was just a good couple shots there. There's not enough to really scuff yourself up about.
A lot of ultimates were used for Converse, right? And there wasn't really value found for the one inside of Hookah, where you try to get the showstopper to clear the 2 players stepping in for main. But you still have the orbital barrage that actually finds a kill. Again, not really sure why your Gecko for Clemson is still sitting on side static. But even if they were able to get away from it, Arctic just had way too much space, was given up for free, and it's not like they even had the smokes placed well to try to keep them away from the initial sight lens and through sight. Give you an option towards back of sight from back of tube. They get the first shot off towards Zuko through tube, the secondary swing to clear your corner pocket player, and then the last one, an element of surprise and unknown, and you just swing them just the same. Gorgeous display from Converse and a much-needed first round win. It will not be a 6-0 start for Clemson Orange. It falls to a measly 5-1. Very doable still for Converse, and Avian's hoping that this first blood would be the best chance to do it, and it will take Ping off the board. Where's your double duelist caught, Clemson? Well, it's gonna have to wait till next round.
I mean, it's already done plenty of work here in this game so far, solidity fighting 5 rounds, which obviously that's mainly off the back of Epoch. The duelist that is still alive, unfortunately for the side of the combat. That's the target that you're really looking for, but I'm not really sure if you're going to find too much considering that Epoch is on the other side of the map. Wanted to get something done, but Puffin is going bird shooting. That man was flying, and he still gets shut down almost instantaneously. We haven't even touched Hookah yet, and yet somehow the majority of the team for Clemson is already knocked down. A great usage of Hunter's Fury, and even then, just a great opportunity given by that Brimstone to take that shot, nail it whenever Epoch wanted to go on the aggression. I'm still just kind of questioning, though, why you have that main fragger, Epoch, who's been doing so much on a round-to-round basis, sitting things out, going somewhere else, being that solo carry, because, I mean, honestly, while it could be a bit of a trick play, it's been so good to just work with the team thus far. So we do a little bit, see a bit more of a
30
fight
seconds left.
unfolding over here. But, I mean, they're just trying to see if they can figure something out. This is not a round you want to attempt. This is not the kind of player allocation you got for it. But even then, you can find one more at least off Avian, who once again is trying to wrap around and just rob these guns out of their hands. They have won 5 in a row to start the game, guys. They're going to have buys anyway.
10 seconds left.
Seemed like a very,
One enemy remaining.
very
down,
smart
B.
choice right now from the side of Converse. You're already struggling with Yiko, and you've made the decision to buy that operator a while back and continue to do so. You're just bleeding. Oh, and the operator gets thrown on the map to make matters worse. That was a smart play from Clemson. Keep that away from Avian's hands. They can still buy it up. The teammates have enough to and try to assist you in the process. Puffin actually swung that over to him to buy it for him, but Converse, he got a round win when, honestly, it should have been a whole lot smoother for them. Keep in mind, the whole beginning stage for Clemson and in through Hookah was entirely shut down off of a poor decision on their own part. They send the recon bolt, through TP on A side. It flows out towards Hookah, gets information. They try to clear it very swiftly.
Get out of my
They weren't really ready for it, meaning that 3 of the 4 players that were walking towards Hookah took a shot. And that just sung out to Epoch. Oh my goodness, there's a whole heck of a lot of players coming my way. And they make the right decision to fall back. And that's when Puffin sends out that Hunter's Fury. And you just find barrage after barrage, skeet shooting like you said. And you just shut down all of that approach. And Clemson didn't have an answer for it.
I don't know if you really have an answer for this, just because it's not even an actual execution. You see so many players stacking up towards the A side of the map, and even then you're not even worried about the players out of there because you had the majority of the players already over here till B still. I mean, every single time you've had this side mission over and over and over again, going for this crash play with people, and your teammates getting overwhelmed is not only insane, but it's successful. As you find yourself in attainment, your guys are there, they're locking in, and they're hitting their shots when they need to keep things rolling, to keep you alive, and to keep Converse here on the board as they find themselves a third. While this lead is still very much manageable, Clemson has to really lock things down. They only need one more to maintain themselves an even half when it comes around to the end of it. Better yet, they are looking for themselves to get an advantage. While they can lock out Converse at 3 and find themselves a 9, it's not really that kind of stage in the game where you're looking too hot to really manage that, because not this round, but the next one, they will be on an eco if things don't go their way, and they have 2 ultimates to work with, which they haven't really been utilizing too much of. So I'm curious to know whether or not they're actually going to start exercising those rights, whether or not they're actually going to be kind of getting themselves in these positions to set these up. Yeah, it's just going to be, WP over and over and over again, as we do see the Thrash at least coming out in this one.
Oh, and there's its Stain off towards Barrel. Nothing you can really do about that. You'll have to send Epoch deep to the back of sight to clear them, but that gives a little bit of information off towards Converse. That you're willing to take that space. And Avian, well, not so willing to stay alive, are you? Icy. Double wombo combo. The aggression right now from Converse seems very unwarranted, despite the fact they have spiked down in default position and can now sit in their post plant to defend this quite well. They've just given up 2 free frags with really no value found afterwards. Just an even shot for shot affair. Blitz will have a 3rd player there to try to defuse this shot. Will connect Epoch, but not enough! Blitz couldn't get the final bullet needed onto Epoch, and Epoch just holds down the trigger and finds everyone left.
Hopefully that's enough.
Per usual, if there's anybody who is going to do it, it was going to be that exact player right there. Time and time again, able to remain consistent. I've said it, just being relatively a one-man army when it comes around to actually pushing these sites. But it's not just a matter of the actual gun skill of that singular individual. It comes down to usually the chaos that ensues, and then just kind of the manipulation of that fact, knowing that I can just disregard everything. I'm a duelist. I have one track on my mind, and that is getting kills. The rest of my teammates have to worry about the utility, the setup, the spikes, all that stuff. I just need to hit my shot, and that's exactly what Epoch's been doing thus far. Looking for another aggressive start here from Clemson Orange. They have managed to at least successfully find one kill, making nearly a second as that showstopper doesn't find the kill. But it is the rifle to make sure to at least get that last tick of damage off. Blitz can find themselves maybe a little bit of an exchange coming back through that spawn, but this could be a difficult take to really even unfold before you, knowing that Clemson, 4 players on site versus the 2 who are wanting to come back from the same exact avenue they pushed with nearly a quarter of the utility, but better yet, even less than half of the players. So it's not an attempt you really want to go for. You want to hold on these guns, see what you can really find to go next. As Clemson find themselves in a 7-3 lead, guaranteeing themselves a lead at the end of the half.
Finally seeing Clemson find success in somewhere that's not the B site. And it's not to say that A site was never going to work out for them. They started to tease it, 3-4 rounds back, but they just weren't really engaging or really committing to the site. We saw them set up all their smoke, all the utility there. But we saw Converse still ready for it on the B site. That was that Epoch and Arctic round. Or no, sorry, Epoch and... I don't know why I'm blanking. Thank you very much. Epoch and Blitz round. Sorry, I keep saying Epoch. I just think of Razes and think of Epoch. Icy and Blitz round where they defended off onto Converse for that B side. That's what you need defensively to be ready if they decide to take that TP for the map of bind, having that instantaneous value to go over. And they knew Clemson really likes the B side, so they weren't expecting too much. But these last 2 rounds have kind of put that worm of doubt inside of their brains saying, hey, we know they're really good on B and we're putting a whole lot of emphasis for our defense there. We need to start doing the exact same thing. We need to start moving Avian more direct to that side. We need to start having 3 players defend A because they have found unwarranted success here and we're being punished for trying to get that instantaneous first frag where we had Avian with that operator off towards Showers trying to get that value. You put Puffin in the exact same spots, except they don't have a rendezvous. They don't have the ability to get out of Showers. Why are you placing this player here doomed to die as Epoch sends the boost packs in through to Lamp? He now has full control over possible backside of sight that they can clear out Avian, but they can't clear anything. If Puffin's still holding an angle and can take down all of your Showers approach.
One of these scenarios where, I mean,
Spike
it's so
down
early where
A.
you can tell who's just going to win the round by the end of it. It's such a dominant force coming from Converse to get things rolling off the get-go that Clemson just doesn't really have a chance to even touch the site. Epoch has already breached that line of confinement, has already made their way over to U-Haul, but that Epoch's going to give everything up, letting you know that's where the singular last player is. Start to come through off the back of it, and the shots to nail that player down. So Converse were thankful.
Last round before the switch.
Seth, slight breath of relief knowing that Epoch is dead. That could have been a possible ace if we had just seen it any second longer. But seeing how things are going, knowing that, well, 8-4, worst case scenario for Converse, best case scenario for Clemson, it's still a relatively good game, knowing that things are still going to be looking doable on either side. I still need to know whether or not Clemson can hold things down on that defensive side, though. Running that double duelist, obviously, you're just going to be filling kind of that same role as a chamber if you do want to be bringing that operator into play. But everything else beyond that, you don't have anything to really slow people down or really back yourself up because you're going to want a lot of this stuff for a retake.
And I won't have any ultimates either for this attack. Absolutely nothing in the back pocket, and the closest person still 3 pips away. You've kind of used everything you had in the last 2 rounds. Means you have nothing hoping for your 8th, but you at least have the weapons that you go to contend with. Converse, though, that's showstopper. Saw how good it was, or maybe how close to success it was 2 rounds ago for Clemson. Icy has been pretty consistent with their showstopper throughout this game, throughout their previous series, but this one, unfortunately for them, the caster's first rears through, and Ping's able to shut that down so swiftly. Alongside Arctic and Blitz says, okay, Icy, if you want to die, I'll let your teammates join you in the afterlife.
Yeah, just seeing how things are going. I mean, every single time, just it feels like the first 45 seconds, you don't see players living. We don't see first picks. Somehow we just see first 3 picks, all within a singular string every single time, that where it never gets to the point where it's an actual fair fight for either side. While Ping wanted to go ahead and manage that ace, I really can't blame you off the back of getting a 4K. I mean, just go ahead and extend. You got 4 players alive. You only got 1 player trying to get something here, but at the end of the half, I mean, there's going to be investments, there's going to be aggression, there's going to be a little bit of complacency here from either end. But I mean, there it is. Conclusion comes underway. 8-4 half for Clemson. They came out swinging. I mean, obviously, the majority of those to that 5-0 start they found, but everything following that, it still looks like Converse hasn't really gotten much of a foothold in this game just yet, but maybe it'll swap up when they start getting in the attacking side.
The big difference is the fact they got that eco round, that thrifty round, right, in round 6, something that was a little unexpected for Clemson to kind of fail with. Losing that out brought immediate value to Converse and let them kind of find parallel success, concurrently 2 rounds in a row, especially with the operator that Avian was working so well with. Clemson realized that, and they will start to hit that A site, and that's where we see things kind of fall back in their favor, and Converse were fumbling around a little bit. It's the team that adapts faster, tends to win faster, and it looks like Clemson Orange were not the team that looked to be so good at adaptation because they just hit the B side 5 times in a row. But once they saw B was failing, they adapted quickly, and Converse failed to find their home themselves on the A side defense for another 3 in a row from Clemson Orange. Now they're back on the D. Converse want to swing in through showers, and Epoch will take down Icy, but immediately falls from the classic of Arctic, and it puts this to an even first fight. But Converse have the full wraparound now back through A as they've taken short, and they've taken Milk Mango's life as well.
Just already opening things up. Converse has to come back with a vengeance when it comes around to this half. Knowing how things went in that first one, the 5-0 start, you have to answer back in blood, and this round is the best place to get that rolling. You guarantee yourself at least the first 2 off the back of it, but knowing how things are going. Speaking of 2, there's only 2 of those remaining on the side of Clemson so far. Looking to kind of lap things around, looking for a pinch, going from an approach from either side of the entire map. It's a lot to ask for. Already shots coming through, like, one's back towards that attacking side spawn. Where's the one over in defense spawn? Well, he's up in heaven. Just dropped down. That audible should have been made, at least off the back of the Gus. But, I mean, there's going to be enough time kills, whether or not you even
Enemy kill.
yourself to successful fights or
One
not.
enemy remaining.
I doubt it's going to be enough time. I mean, I could go ahead and gas and Zuko and ping all day, but, I mean, there's players there, players here, and, well, they're all gone.
Gas is cursed, huh? They're making us bite our words here, Dallas. Say one thing, they throw it back the other way, and I say one thing that's just wrong here.
What are we doing?
That is unbelievable. Converse played that beautifully at the start. Obviously they lose first blood. Epoch gets it. It's fine. Arctic's good for the trade. You wrap around. Unbelievably successful, might I add, taking down the initiator Milk Mango, which means they won't have that wingman, that extra player for the defuse, so he can stand with his pistol up to try and contest.
That's a good spot.
And yet you still can't hold out in a post plants.
It's 2v1s. And that, I mean, even then you can just reallocate. Give a 1v1, go for a 3v1, try something after that. Just come on.
Converse gonna be kicking themselves. Rightfully so, though. For this attack, they'll move back over to the H site again. Spike is inside of Lamp. Maybe they were hoping to get that wide swing, the 3 swing, to try to take down the player sitting back aside. It works, but they also tried to pivot a player deep inside of an elbow, and that unfortunately did not.
Spike down,
They'll take
B.
the TP on over to the B site and be punished for their transgressions. Ping now with the outlaw, missing
One
the first,
enemy
able
remaining.
to tack in for a second one, though.
Spike down,
Azuko
B.
finishes off the second wraparound through 2, but it's just Avian. Once again, a whole lot being brought out from Converse. Early success and instantaneous failure at the end. Clemson Orange will get to double digits with only 4 tallied up in Converse's favor so far.
I'm just still at a loss. It's obviously second round, not too much to really go over there. So you're in expected kind of deficit when it comes around to Converse and the gunfire they're providing to the table, but you need everything after that. You're at the point still where you're just at a point of recovering mentally from figuring out what exactly happened the round prior. I mean, obviously, as players, they got to be feeling it, but as casters, even though we're not in the game, and yet we're still feeling the impacts of that, and it's going to trickle along further and further, knowing that even then, when you look at that kind of 0-5 start that we ran into earlier, it's going to be just kind of that lingering thought. It's going to be haunting you, letting you know, is this going to happen again? Are we going to find ourselves a case where we just can't really play the game, which Avian's already kind of looking at, considering that you're basically a pixel going forward. Finally, a little bit of help coming out from Blitz here in the round so far, but everything going forward, you're looking at this team, trying to figure out what exactly they're compiling on their end to really find an execution. And while they got players here, they got guns, they got util, and they got the site clear, there's still a retake they have to worry about.
What a great throw at the paint shell to clear out the player in Cubby. Wingman getting that spike down. You're now in a 4 versus 3 post plant scenario. The weapon's still favoring Clemson Orange. So step back in towards site. The outlaw was collected as well, something that Converse were pretty privy on using, but didn't find that much use of initially. Maul will go in towards rear site too, but Maybe giving the best chance possible now for Halo Jorge to swing in through a main as they will fall after finding their one. Value still nonetheless, but Blitz still standing and still dominating off towards B long. It's the chance for one more from Epoch, but Icy says no, it's a 3 for me. 5 now for Converse, and a very dirty start of that round ends finally with success, putting another round in their belt.
Yeah, just seeing how things are going. I mean, obviously, Converse, they have a pretty big hill to overcome, but I mean, it's not the worst one in the world. It's that point in the game when you see a lot of teams get more complacent, slow themselves down, knowing they're in that final countdown territory, and they just kind of end up forgetting the objective at hand, thinking there's a lot more at play. So, knowing Clemson, I don't think they're going to really fall fault to that, knowing that they got that double duelist kind of situation going on. I mean, it's going to be pedal to the metal 24/7, essentially, but I mean, we got to see really how they're going to start to change things up, at least in their approach, their aggressions, and better yet, just their general defaults. The double hold here towards Hookah, I mean, I really got to respect him, and I really do. But seeing how things are going so far, I think, honestly, Converse is doing that same exact thing. Understand things aren't going to look too hot. Nobody even wants to push out of that. They're going to use that Thrash as a pure catalyst for all 5 players funneling out, because that's one thing you just can't stop.
Icy's got contention in towards back of side. We'll send a room of death to try to clear out main, but it's still a back and forth battle on side itself. Zuko has assistance in through Hookah. Finally, Halo Jorge will try to extend from main, but the Molly will keep them back for just a few moments longer as the second Thrash comes forward from Blitz. No one in towards side, no one off towards elbow, and the escape from Halo Jorge means they will not be detained as they start to apply pressure in through the Sky Smoke. Guiding light perfectly placed, and Halo steps in big to make use of it. Just Blitz now through Octagon.
Oh my God.
Swinging is not gonna matter if Zuko shuts it down. And Clemson will find themselves an 11th and tallying it so close to sending us out of bind.
All you need is 2 more past this point, and especially looking at the economy there, I mean, it's not looking the best for everybody on the side of Converse. A couple buys able to come through, at least from Icy and Avian specifically, but that little sandwich right there, usually that's your meat and potatoes, that's your substance, but it is nothing but lacking there. Every singular other player that's supposed to at least try to be holding things down, kind of creating that synonymous agreement of what are we going to be buying, what are we going to be working with in a round like this, they're just going to be having to do something drastically different from their other 2 players. So knowing that it's in that 11-5 scenario as well, I mean, this is the point in the game where you kind of have to take those risks. You have to go for those purchases. You have to find something. But being you only had 2,900, you can't even really just afford the gun itself with a half armor. You're going to be stuck with nothing. So that's just how the game goes. Knowing that Clemson has found themselves such a great start, they've just really been rolling this thing along. Their bind has looked really flushed out compared to what we've seen in the past. But at least 1 kill comes out from this. One of the 2 guns on the side of Converse that can be picked one up. That could be a domino effect where more people got more to work with. But there's a bit of a backup. There's a player not protecting the gun. Was for a second, but better yet, the territory that surrounds us. Epoch able to find one. This guy's on site, and that's super concerning, knowing that wingman is within the direct trajectory of that paint shell, and the rest of these players are within the trajectory of the bullets, and maybe even then better yet, the showstopper. But we've seen this thing before. It kills around corners, but doesn't kill on direct hit.
It is a literal flip of the coin whether or not it's going to find a player. But you know, it's not a flip of a coin. It's a flip of a dagger. It's ping with a blade storm out. Converse down to a 3 versus 3, and Spike's not down yet. Meaning that they've got an even fight when this should not yet even be the case, and they haven't found the success they were hoping for. And with this Epoch wraparound and the patience that comes from it, there should have been a whole lot more behind it. Epoch, what the heck is going on there?
Spike planted.
You've left Zuko now in a 1v2, and the spike goes down for free. The drop should be quite the distance away, so Zuko should go unnoticed. They tend to drop out and away from heaven. That reload audio cue will tell Zuko.
Unless you know everything.
Zuko gotta play into this. It's a 2 versus. They have 1 guiding light. They have the shot here.
1 enemy
in the first
remaining.
blood. They don't even use the util. You have a guiding light, Zuko.
We've seen Converse fumble many a 2v1s before.
Not this one.
Unexpectedly so. I hate to say I'm actually surprised in something like that where the 2v1 goes.
Me, I'm dreaming.
Goodness gracious. And even then, it was the secondary player. You knock down the Vandal, but you keep the Sheriff player in play, and they are the ones who close it out. It's at that point where You're just kind of knocking down dominoes, but just the alignment isn't there for one of them.
It's kind of shocking considering how good they have been
Oh
throughout
yeah!
this.
Monster on the
You
loose!
have that guiding light. See why you wouldn't necessarily use it. Blitz will send the Thrash forward, notices there's nobody off towards Lamp, and will leave it there, wanting to have the capability to reclaim it. Epoch was inside of Showers, gets pressured from Avian. Is forced to very quickly fall back into the process, gets executed in from the crossfire. It's 5 players for Converse, and only 3 now remaining, dwindling for Crimson Orange, and that's now 2 more dusted as it's only Ping remaining. Their life soon to be stuffed into the wind unless they can find some crazy shots to make up for it. And they only get the 1 frag off towards Avian on bench.
Just at a point, I mean, right here, right now, Clemson, they're going to make a stand. I mean, you're looking at 3 ultimates on the board. You're looking at economy starting to build up for the side of Converse. I mean, but keep in mind that you didn't find yourself a 10th, but you found an 11 to work with. So, I mean, that's a great stance for them, knowing that when worst comes to worst, you'll only need 1 more round to at least tie things up if you do find yourself into a deficit. But even then, Clemson taking the time out to figure out what they want to do to even reach that point is understandable and respectful, better yet. Seeing how things are going, I mean, they've had some good rounds. They've had some great stances. They've had just outstanding executions when it came around to that attacking side. But on defense, I'm not going to say they've been lacking. They've been doing pretty darn well, all things considered. It's just at that point where, I mean, Epoch is the one who needs to stay alive. Let's be real. That's been your main fragger, and while you think you can put him on top of an island and they're just going to dominate, that hasn't been the case. It wasn't the case on the attacking side whenever you saw Epoch trying to go on those kind of solo push ventures and try to kind of fake something out. And it's not going to happen here when you see Epoch off on an island once again towards Showers and they're lonesome trying to find these lineups. You need to put this player into a scenario where they're playing for the retake, where they're working among all the chaos, because Clemson's takes was marginally faster than Converse's. So I think their retakes are going to have that same exact level of implementation, are going to have that same level of aggression, and that timer isn't really going to be a concern of theirs.
They're live pinging off to the B site. They were a little bit more concerned there instead of towards A, but they will still maintain their pressure and their initial default in towards A.
Nowhere to run!
We saw just how short their takes in through Showers have been. Most of their pressure's been through shorts, but they'll find pressure instantly by having the Showers player Epoch once again flushed out from there and then executed, this time with a Hunter's Fury, as they not put players in through short fast enough to have that crossfire to take them down instead. Well played wonderfully from Converse. Taylor Hooray will be taken down alongside Ping as they attempted to step out for Metal. Avian wrapping back away in through shorts, and you've got Icy sitting up on top of their 80-nut stack with a tertiary line of sight to try to deal with any of that pressure. As the light ping has come forward, and that Icy is there, but they can't get the swing and transfer as Zuko and Milk Mango. Now only Milk. Will this Sour before it even gets the chance to brew into something worse? The flash finds nothing, and they have the shock dart from inside a spawn to try to keep them away, and Wingman was not able to get it up to half. And the rendezvous puts Avian directly back into sight, into the loving arms of the Converse post plant hold, and that's 8 rounds now to their name.
More being put on the board here from the side of Converse. Even the middle, yeah, I still think Clemson have a shot. But Converse, I'm just happy to see they're putting their names right back into this game. Knowing how things have been going for them so far, a bit of a quiet first half, all things considered. And this is where I was expecting them to really start turning up. And even then, knowing that, I mean, Avian was kind of at the bottom of the board there for a while. So, I mean, that's kind of to be expected. You're okay with that. And even then, on the attacking side, it's even more so warranted. But right here, right now, you get to see really what the rest of the team is doing. Only one singular player on Converse is positive. They are coming from an entire detriment, and they're not even investing all their kills in a singular player because their positive one is 15 and 12. So it's not like there's an overwhelming amount of just domination going on right now. It's more so just a matter of a loss of sense, a loss of just kind of territory and what they really need to be doing in this match so far. But they're getting the hang of it as they are getting the plant down right now, at least for this singular round. But Clemson also don't have the best guns, so they're not swinging out like they typically do. They're afraid to take these fights to see if anything's overextended, maybe find themselves an upgrade. And even then, more specifically, as they come in here for a retake, they're going to have to really just press the W key with all of them.
Arctic launches the shock dart in through lamp. The pressure is on, and Clemson are trying to send everyone in one direction to help facilitate this retake. But it is falling apart as expectations would arise. Zuko is the only player to really find a kill so far in this round, and they may be the last one to find one in general, as Zuko's at 49 HP, and it quickly is dropped to 0. Converse now at 9 rounds. In a 3-round spree, 4 round spree will greatly assist your attacking side, but it still isn't up to the level that Clemson had at the very beginning when they ripped off 5 in a row with not really a great answer from Converse in any of those 5, and having to pull off a thrifty to start to even contend in that first half. Will things continue to change? This A side has been home for Converse, but knowing that these last few have been so successful here and that last one was an eco round, they may want to start to default and look off towards the B site instead, and that seemingly is what's going to happen, as they will leave Spike towards Spices and split this roster up in 2.
Right, doing this default once more. You do have at least 2 players now trying to aggress, but even then they're both duelists. You don't have any flashes for assistance besides the ones that are coming through those doors. I should just stop saying anything ever. I mean, they have game plans. I mean, the flash is a little bit late to my credit, okay? But it's at that point, though, where, I mean, I would like to see if any hits do come through. I'd like to see some wraparounds from Clemson. I'd like to see some utilization of the entire map, because I feel like they look much stronger coming from the attacking side spawn than they do the defense.
That's very fair. The initial pressure off towards Showers, that was interesting. Dallas is no longer a primary point of concern. Clemson have stationed ping off inside of Showers deep, and will now need to start to think about moving Epoch on that transition towards B, because the smokes are starting to go down and the pressure is most definitely on. They'll sit within that sky smoke, and Halo Warrior will cling the wing.
Oh my god, what?
Why are you so far forward? I'm not so sure, but Halo Warrior is having a field day on sight. 2 before falling, refragged back by Epoch, in a dangerous position of dominance now here for Converse with this frag that alleviates that primary concern of the player differential. As Milk inside of main, a flank in through Hookah, lots to build forward as it gets the detain, and it makes this now a 2v1 on site. Avian the headhunter, flanked in from ping, no, it's direct, just like your teammate of Milk, and that's a 12 tally for Clemson. They're at match point, one bind.
Love the audibles there, love the shot call, saying why not? We're at a stance where if we end up winning this thing, this is not a round we should risk. Guarantee that map point, guarantee something to work with here, because anything beyond this, we're looking at 10-11. We're looking a little bit too close for comfort. And even then, we don't know whether the investment's actually going to be there. Converse's economy is looking much hotter. The only one singular individual not really having everything to work with. Meanwhile, the entirety of Clemson could have been in an eco. So, I mean, that's just not a round you want to risk. It's a do or die kind of situation. If anything, in best case scenario, you're looking into an overtime. So, the momentum cannot go one direction or the other, but one thing that can happen is a closure can come out right now. Showstopper in hand compared to the tour de force on the attacking side, which you're never really going to be too stressed about because it has to push around corners. Meanwhile, you're just holding angles, hoping guys swing. But oddly enough, tour de force that I've mentioned isn't stationed towards that shower where you're kind of guaranteed a gunfight every here and there. Epoch swinging it out once more, and even then, another one of those situations where I think this guy needs to get with the rest of the group or things are not going to look good for him.
It's trying to make sure nobody's sitting up on stack just on the other side of it and ensure that Converse's approach here will go unsullied. This first blood has been eluding either side, and this is the primary concern for Converse. That tour de force will have been wrapped over towards B long, knowing that there's no pressure there just yet in Avian's face. Will try to send dudes to Converse to take that TP and get the heck out of dodge on A. As 2 players inside of Hookah will bury one. Zuko once more, Tasmanian Tiger forward. Huge concuss now, the guiding light to follow suit. Get out of there, it's not going anywhere. As Converse's Icy desperately swings onto the A site and gets there 2 before falling. And it's a dust in the wind for Clemson. All of this pressure and Puffin just makes matters worse. Where did the shots go from earlier, Zuko and Halo?
10 seconds left.
Even
now
then,
you have to prey on ping, Dallas.
It's doable. Puffin doesn't have all the health in the world. Essentially only one shot. The only real target you're concerning yourself with is Blitz, and, well, I think it's Rash. Yeah, a little concerning. You would have liked to at least kind of pressure the situation where you make that guy use it. No things
Shoot the
carry
bad
on.
guys.
The
How's that
last
for a
2
plan?
rounds or last round technically could be used without really having that there as a cushion. But here we are looking at Converse having not 1 but 2 of them now, especially with Puffin getting that last kill. So with the orbital barrage, if you end up getting yourself the spike down, there you go. There's some time kills.
That
Traps,
works.
once again, some more time kill. That's even after being able to use it at the start of the round as a means to really just kind of clear a lot of space to get that free playing off and guarantee yourself that time of a ticking time bomb that we're mentioning already. All that I mentioned, once again, apparently I just can't do my job. So we're just throwing that out the window and immediately throwing it towards U-Haul.
Can't blame you, Dallas. This is just a bunch of nonsense. It feels like
Like,
half the
dude.
time. It is just a mess
planted.
upon a mess upon a mess. The game of solitaire with no true ending. Smoke will go down. Obviously, the orbital barrage out of the rep from Converse. Got 1 kill and they've gotten 1 since then. It's been pretty worse for Clemson since then. And it was already a rough start considering this was an eco. Avian with a nice Vandal shot up towards heaven. Epoch ensuring nobody's taking that shower's door, and maybe they're just going to pray for an exit frag. But Ping has popped this blade storm and needs to start to move forward with these blades in their pocket. They get 1. Avian pays the price. Maybe a chance for more, but Blitz goes as said. It's my chance, and it'd be 11th for Converse. This very well could be OT, since Clemson have not really found a seemingly solid answer, Dallas, just yet to how Converse play this attack.
It's just another one of those games, man. Just keeps things rolling, keep on going. And I mean, seeing how things have gone out so far. I mean, even then better yet, you got the orbital barrage out of the way. I mean, for an eco round, no more Converse. I just didn't expect it just because Clemson doesn't have any real threats. I mean, sure, you know, you got the Blade Storm, and maybe you could think that it's coming out aggressing towards that A main area of the map, and you're kind of facing it out. But I mean, that's just not something you do. You got the Thrash to go ahead and start things off. At least I'm riding something tonight so far, for the love of God. But knowing that, I mean, getting that person off the Hunter's Fury to follow it up is absolute insanity. We've seen successful attempts, good shots, good kills coming out from that stuff. But see how it's going right now, not too much of an effect from either. And even then, better yet, if that Thrash didn't turn tail and go right back to that spawn side, it's hanging out in the open. That thing could maybe not be recovered for the round.
Especially with the fact that Zuko has assistance from your barrel player inside a copy of Epoch. You put Ping up in heaven, you've got a great sideline to try to devastate. Ping, though, can't go too much further. What a shutdown from Avian. You have to now rely on Epoch sitting off towards Barrel, and Zuko, who doesn't really have the greatest shot to contend. Oh, and he gets the spike the last literal moment. Epoch, recall bolt has to be cleared. Icy's already low. They'll use a shot to try to obfuscate this audio cue of the drop-off from bench. But it doesn't save their life, and that is a very poor paint shell. Bouncing off the top of Cubby. Why don't you milk? Send the wingman to do your dirty work. Clemson will send them out of bind. Stopping OT, Dallas.
Hey, GG, yo.
And upsetting the Converse purple roster.
I'm quitting my job. There's just, I hate it. 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 It's so many scenarios where it's like, okay, this here, this there, this there. It all just seems like, all right, there's a structure, right? Or at least, so help me, there should be. And it just feels like every bit of that. It's like, why? Why? It's those buildings that are built slanted. It's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa was by design. It's one of those things where I just don't know really what's going on too much. Seeing right there, especially, I mean, so many circumstances, better yet, where Converse were in 2v1s, losing them over and over and over again. Not even 2v1s, 3v1s, 4v1s. We saw plenty of kill strings coming out from that dynamic duo of the Jet and the Rays in that specific instance, especially in that first half. But that one's behind us. It's the second half where it really started just there's a whole bunch of sludge just getting mixed around, and just the smell of it wasn't really helping with what I was seeing. It gets to that point where over and over again, you're looking at these players, you're looking at these teams, you're looking at these executes, these retakes, and you're thinking, all right, this should happen. This is how it's going to work. But I mean, I just can't help but to wonder what those comms sound like, to know what exactly is going on for things that feel so structured and easy just to kind of completely dismantle. Just not even really be an afterthought there. You mentioned it, the Sky in the 1v2, pushing over into U-Haul. You got a guiding light. Where's our utility usage? Again, you got a Gecko on both sides. It feels like Dizzy's and things aren't being recovered. Wingmans aren't getting their extra usages. even in that last round situation, it shouldn't even come down to a Sova going into praying for a lineup to occur. Once again, I mean, that's on both ends of the spectrum for both these teams. Being a stage where, I mean, Paint Shell going ahead, bouncing off. You got Dizzy up in the air as well. It's like, why are we really doubling down on these? We should be working together and spacing these out where we can. It's just a lot happening, but maybe that's the beauty of buying. Maybe it's just how things are going to go. Or for future sake, I'm kind of hoping not.
Yeah, I mean, a strat book needs to be followed, and it doesn't feel like there was maybe enough depth. A strat book's essentially a recipe book, right? You have to follow it to a T. There's other recipes. If something goes wrong, you realize halfway through, oh, I'm lacking garlic. I'm lacking my initiator, right? You can switch up to another recipe and say, well, I can make this garlic bread into just normal toasted bread. It's still going to be pretty darn good, I'm sure, at the end of the day. And unfortunately, they thought they were chefs in the kitchen, and then they unfortunately just kind of looked instead like a witch brewing a cauldron. It just was not where they wanted to be. It looked poor. It was really disjointed. It was really mismanaged, I should say. And this is not what we expected from them. And that's saying a lot because we have a lot of expectations for them because we know just how darn good they are, Dallas. That's going to have to be proven to us as they head on over towards map 2. But before then, we're going to take a quick break. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back with more SEL action. Stay tuned to see how this one pans out. A 13-11 on Bind Dallas is a crazy stat line. When you see the teams that were stepping into it, you expected
Right.
Converse, the team that plays so far in CVAL, the team that's got the history, the team that hasn't really had that many roster changes, and then Clemson upsetting them even and being the team that reaches 13. We had TJ, except for the cast, they go, what the heck just happened? That's how crazy that first map was, and a rightful victory for Clemson. And they have to try to continue that success, stepping over to map 2 and pray that they can take Icebox as well to take this in 2-0 route. Because if they don't, Converse is not the team to take it lying down, and they will come back with a vengeance in the map of Haven.
Yeah, I mean, but good news for Clemson, though, that wasn't their map pick. They just ended up winning. So they kind of robbed something away from the side of CVU, and now they can really keep things going on that map of Icebox that we talked so heavily about. Big thing on this map is, though, we talked about structure. We talked about these teams and what they're really starting to provide here. And honestly, this has to be a map where we can't really see much more of that because Bind is very contested, is very small. And you get to those points where you can kind of let a lot of it slide because of just how things go and how fast things occur. But Icebox, I mean, this is a map that teams loved for such a long time because it was very structured. It felt very different. And obviously, that A side with all those entries, I mean, you would see teams just over and over again hit that A side 10 times over. But as it stands right now, this is a map that kind of figures like it feels like it's been figured out to a relative degree with only slight changes here and there. It shouldn't be much of a different result, quite frankly. It really just comes down to whether or not do they actually really follow the code. Do we see teams able to just kind of really get down, get dirty, and find themselves those picks? And better yet, what do we actually see Clemson provide in terms of a composition for something like this? Because we've seen it before. We've seen the double duelist right now, but I
See it
mean,
again.
will we see it on the next one? I couldn't blame them if they wanted to go for it. It would still end up working. It would still have the same relative degree in terms of success, but I don't think you're going to find as many kind of contested fights and amounts of chaos that you could see Epoch manipulating earlier, like right here, right now.
Yeah, I think if you play a double duelist, which I think is likely, I actually think Icebox is one of the few maps where I say a double duelist is unbelievably strong. It's got to be something like Arena. It has to have that leer. It has to bring value around these bins, around these corners, especially the tighter angles as you extend on towards the B site and the tight angles as you go off towards A. That Reyna can bring a lot of value too. But if you don't do something like that, go for gunfight ones. Go for an ISO. Try to have some level of assistance there. It doesn't look like either team wants to go for the double duelist, and it looks like it will be a mirror composition unless the Harbor gets locked in.
You get it out of Converse. You get it out of Converse. Globe is essentially a pseudo duelist.
Yeah, yeah, that is very true. The ability to come back in a firefight, the ability to overheal in a firefight. Oh.
It's one of those things where, like, I mean, yeah, it's another one of those pseudo duelist deals. I mean, you got, like, obviously, I feel like Clove is more of a darn
Chamber,
duelist.
now Clove.
Yeah, I mean, Clove's more of a darn duelist than Yoru, if you ask me. I mean, it's just one of those things. So, I mean, you look at the kind of pseudo areas where, you know, you got these lines drawn between areas and you're trying to figure out which little side you lay on. And it's just one of those things where Clove doesn't really kind of offer too much. But honestly, if anybody knows anything about me, I'm low-key just kind of rooting for Clemson a little bit right here just because I want that Harbor win ready to go off. I want that thing to skyrocket because Harbor to go is what it is. And even then, oddly enough, I do believe it was last season. Was it? I want to say just because I know the name. I know Blue Lobster. I don't know if on the side of Clemson, I don't know if he was the one who was playing Harbor last season just because it kind of feels thematic. But I want to feel like it was Halo Jorge who was playing the Harbor during their last season, if I'm not wrong. Because Clemson did implement Harbor a good bit because some of their players, I know they had like kind of that comfort pick for it. And I feel like now they're at a stage where they just, it doesn't matter who picks it up, just get him in there.
I do feel like you're, I think it was on Pearl. You saw it? I remember. I definitely am remembering it's pictures in my brain, the box you have to open for that memory. I'm pretty sure I remember Halo Jorge with a picture of Harbor next to them. So I want to say you were right, but it may not matter at all. They lose their Sentinel for the very first round, and well, that kind of stinks. It's just round one. It's not that big of a deal. Just a distinct bite out. It's the only one you now have as well for the defensive Clemson, and you have to get your team to wrap back around in through attacker spawn to try to catch those two now wrapping around through green off guard. Spike is still yet to go down. There's a lot of utility despite it being only round one that is there for Clemson to try to buy time, but inevitably it will run out, and Converse is there to sight fast enough that they have plenty of time to let them burn that util and play very smart and wise enough to how they'll play this in this post-plant scenario. One player all the way back in attacker spawn. Let them wrap. Recon bolts sent from Clemson's defense on towards site, hoping to find any information, but there's a noticeable lack of it. And the toxic screen makes sure that intel isn't available either. And it's a clean shot for Icy, who can't hit the second. And that's why you got teammates, folks. It's Arctic to clean up.
Good round, good execution, good finish there from Converse through and through. Got another one of those situations, because if I saw a 2v4 and I saw it lost one more time, I was going to get off the broadcast. But seeing how things are going, I'm happy to know that obviously to start things off, I mean, it's a much better start than what we saw when it came around to looking back on Bide. And I'm expecting this also to slow down a little bit more so and not really be a 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 kind of start. I'm expecting this to be a little more structured, a little more slow. Teams really having to think. I mean, considering that we do see a double controller on both sides, so you can't really play nearly as aggressive as you want. I mean, obviously, Avian can play that club, can play aggressive, and die over towards enemy territory and still have those smokes down at appropriate times, but still got to let things marinate before you can really get things going.
I have to mention that actually, the controller difference here is, well, there's a lot of active utility that's available for Harbor. There's a lot of retroactive utility that's available for your Clove. And Converse can have that player, be taken out and still find value inevitably with those smokes, which is just a ridiculous statistic. That is just that kit still to this day shocks me that it exists. It's something that Converse really wanted to utilize, and we'll have to see how they pan it out for the remainder of this match on the attacking side at the very least. They'll have a 4-1 split. Still the B side is the site they choose to take. The toxic screen is waiting to go up and probably just going to try to buy as much time as humanly possible before trying to get that spike down in default, because they know that with that Sova on towards site, as well as an unknown factor of that Halo Jorge Viper nearby, you don't want to give up too much too soon, but Epot gives away the top of their head, and it's a clean shot back in return from the Bulldog to strike first in true for Converse's side, now leaving into a 5 versus 4 with no wraparound from Clemson's defense, and a Converse side that just needs to wait for these players to line up. The Outlaws remaining. And Vandals can close and secure every single pick that's needed, essentially just to tally those ultimates up on the board and have every weapon you could possibly ask for going into round 3.
Yeah, Zuko seemingly with number the classic in hand, just waiting for this light to go off, dying to the detonation in the process, not really giving over much of an ult point. Possibly could find a pick here. Yeah, just does not want to give anything up. Can't really blame you there. Go down to the spike, get that money, figure out what you can really do here, and go to the next. Flawless round for Converse to get themselves a 2-0 start. A beautiful look for them, all things considered, knowing they finally have a little bit of weaponry. Only the singular Vandal to work. That's not that big of a deal when you look at the full salute of Vandals coming out from the side of Clemson. But not even with full armor in every single one of the players. So a couple of half armors here to work with. It's going to be a bit of an awkward round even then, because Icy with an outlaw in hand going to be able to do just as much damage as anybody else. Still a one-shot gun. So that's going to be a little bit weird to deal with, considering that, I mean, it depends on how, kind of aggressive these players get. And Halo Jorge has been very much a victim to that so far, kind of pushing up towards that B area of the map and seemingly knowing that every single of these players love pushing up this B area of the map. That's going to be a free pick just over and over again. They're going to be falling fall to.
Clemson, I think we're trying to take advantage of the fact that maybe Converse aren't ready for a very early aggressive angle. Well, the option may have been there. Wisening up as Converse is Sentinel, your KJ, and they'll fall back now to join the rest of the team off towards this B site. Clemson, the problem with Icebox on defense is if they just hit A over and over again, it's very hard to find a strategy that will, defer that attacking team from being able to secure that pick. But B site's a lot easier for you unless you just can't rotate there fast enough. And that's something that Converse are trying to rely on, harp on, try to get you some pressure towards A, leave your players there, maybe a player inside tube, and have the ability to stop that rebound, that wraparound. But a combo of the Snakebite and Shock Dart on B for the default plant is enough for Clemson Orange to get their kill off towards Converse and stop the plant. But now they'll need to second guess whether this approach onto B is the right idea, or if maybe they should bait the idea of a rotate off to A. They'll set up their smokes once more onto site, and they'll even secure a frag to ping with Icy, the player, to do so. And Avian very, very careful about putting and chancing their life to put down this spike. You have to have Puff and go for even more. One more in Hall. Can Zuko do it? Well, I don't care how much of a firebend you are. You're an icebox, not the map where you can get too many frags to your name. And Puffin proves that as Icy completes for the final frag.
Once again, I mean, another round coming up from Converse, another kind of start where I just feel like I should shut up. I say 2-0, 2-1, then just once again, it gets around to a 3-0 start. I mean, these teams are just absolutely steamrolling each other. It comes down to these circumstances over and over again where it's going to feel like one side's going to be kind of at a loss for a little while. The other side's going to take a little bit of time to really start catching up. And even then, it's not going to feel like some legitimate, solidified grounding, some actual just experienced footwork we see going at play here. So, I mean, while every single team, obviously, being here in the Tier 1, I mean, and even then, Clemson choosing this map, obviously have the experience. Obviously, they have games ready to roll. But issue is, with the opponent at hand, is the execution and even is the opportunities really going to rise to be able to execute that and show it off.
Let's will net the first blood of the round, and it's in Converse's favor once again. Something that Clemson were fighting for early in the last round and didn't really have the chance to go for, and I won't say that was the thing that inevitably bit them in the rear, but it looks like it'll be puffin in this round. Round 4, panning out the wrap in through tube, all the way up through defender's spawn. You take kitchen, you take back aside, and you take down another player into the afterlife. This will be a free plant onto the B site. Every player that was conceivably there to defend this objective was caught lacking on A, with the just occasional use of utility to that side in the early pressure Converse brought. They bit too hard into the bait, and now you'll be paying the price. It was poisoned meat. This B site, it's disastrous to try to retake, especially when the weapons just aren't in your favor. Puffin and Icy, one each. And Epoch, the last standing, up inside of kitchen, spotted by Avian, and Avian closes house. It's sold for Converse. 4-0 starts as they look to do exactly what Clemson did on Bind.
Yeah, I mean, just huge start here, an absolute steamroll to get things rolling, but even then more so, I mean, just not even any real bearings kind of accumulated here from Clemson. No rounds have been relatively close. It's been basically 3 players at the end of a round, 3, 4 kind of around that area. And I mean, you got to get to a point where, I mean, this being basically the next rifle round, this is the last rifle round you're guaranteed before you're more than likely looking at a, you know, obviously an even half guaranteed, or better yet for Converse, an entire lead before you've even managed to get yourself on the board. So it seems like they're finally getting a little bit of confidence, and it's good to see Converse start to wake up and really kind of put the pieces together between themselves.
Right here.
I mean, it's not too late for this map, considering the series is still going, but the last one, it felt like they were really getting there, but it took a while.
Shots in towards the A site. No one having been taken off the board just yet, but Avian has the chance now to take one, but Halo!
Down A.
1-2 swing. Avian now stepping in with the ult, needs to get an assist, needs to get a frag. Not getting any damage off to Halo before they fell is fairly disastrous. Maybe Avian has a chance, but they will inevitably fall. And Clemson's defense now has a 2x player advantage. As this post plant gets underway, and I believe Milk spotted Icy. That's not going to stop Icy from getting 2. As Blitz joined in to secure one of their own, now requiring the last. As Epoch will wrap off towards elbow. It's going to clear the check for default position, and Blitz was a little shy on the shots, but still, the confidence comes back. And it will be a good round win for Converse to secure now 5, despite the fact it was a 4 versus 2 in a post plan on the A side.
Timeout coming through for Clemson up to 5-0, understanding that they're getting a bit of a taste of their own medicine from what we saw in the last map, but seeing that things are looking seemingly a little different here in the regards. I mean, a lot of these rounds I mentioned earlier, the economy looking much better overall. It finally comes down to a kind of 1v1 situation, just like we saw in that 5-0 scenario that we got into during Bind. So, I mean, it's extremely reminiscent, but you got to do something different here. I mean, obviously, the only difference that I'm seeing right now is, besides the agent selection and the map, obviously, is the fact that we're not seeing the timeout from Converse come after one singular round loss. Clemson wants to ensure this. They want to make sure to invest this pretty early on. We're almost reaching half into a quarter of the game right now. So it's at that stage where you're saying, yeah, I think it makes sense to go ahead and pop it right now, slow things down, figure out what exactly is at hand. And I mean, obviously, it is not a very good tale. It's not a very good circumstance to be handed. But in all reality, you got 2 ultimates to work with right now. The Reckoning's going to be good for a retake, and the Hunter's Fury is going to be good for denial. Those 2 things you can guarantee. But Problem is the weapons at hand aren't really what you want to be working with. Those are the things that are really going to hold you back in these kinds of situations, knowing that even then we saw the inkling of a Guardian coming through for Epoch, and everything else for everyone else is just going to be kind of, once again, not satisfactory.
Revealing area.
Recon Bolt sent out. Looks like an eco round for Clemson Orange, and with the large lack of success both on the defense for A and for B, they'll have to stay very tightly joined together. I'm afraid that they'll have all 5 even in an eco round to make this retake as valuable and as much of a chance as possible. You don't want to take too big of a gamble. You want to make sure you put all the odds in your favor as soon as possible. No wraparound will come forward. No map control gathered from Clemson Orange. They want to send all 5 out as soon as possible into this A site. Converse take the directly opposite approach. IC will stay in towards side, staying up on top of Cubby. And the second they start to see that utility come in towards the objective, they will fall back wisely, and they will stack up inside of A main to try to hold dominant. And there goes the Cove, tries to keep them off. A spike gets tapped, not going to matter too much afterwards. Avian gets a good 2, but somehow Ping and Halo also find impact. It's just too short-lived for Clemson to really work with. A 6-0 start, as you would expect for Converse. But when you make the timeout in an eco round, Dallas, you're hunting not just for that next round, but hopefully the next 2 or 3 past that on top of it.
Yeah, we can only hope that as much, considering that Clemson are at a worse deficit than what we saw during the first map. I mean, obviously, the majority of those kills that we saw come underway for Converse, Clemson didn't even see a player to shoot back at. So it's a little bit awkward on them in that last round. If you did end up calling the timeout for it, A, not really the best look, but B, not really the best idea, considering that, well, you couldn't exercise any of those ideas and even then give them a chance just because you were caught in between so much that you really couldn't do much. So getting things in a way and around like this, you see Ping obviously starting to get warmed up a little bit on that operator in hand. And while this could be a good move, it could be bad for the retake, but we have yet to really see too much of that. It has just been an absolute spotlight coming through from the side of Converse that honestly, it just feels like once that spike goes down, the round is just necessarily over.
Even with all the ultimates that Clemson have been, tallying in their way, it's not helped them whatsoever, and they're finally starting to feel the pressure to use those. Hunter Fury goes out, nothing to it. Converse just don't get tapped by it, don't give them any information. The recon bolt really gets nothing either, so it's just a blind fire coming out from Clemson. And I hate to say it, we're seeing once again, Dallas, the problem I've talked so heavily about. Hunter's Fury with no intel is the worst way possible to play an ultimate. So you had a pretty rough start as you left a player off on the A side, hoping to catch the rotate off guard. They fall instead in a blind fire through the toxic screen from Snowman. Deals with the player who just planted down the spike, and you have Zuko going on an even larger tear. 2 versus 5.
One enemy remaining.
One player in the Viper's pit, and Zuko gets their 3rd of this round. It's just pumping. They've got to go crazy. They've got 2, but Zuko has 4. Demons will arise for Clemson Orange, and this one's got horns. And it puts them up to their 1st round win after a 6-round deficit from Converse's side.
Finally getting on the board, but I mean, I'm not going to say at what cost. I mean, you only used 2 ultimates for that round, so it's not even really the biggest trade-off. You're not really stressed out too much about it. The Blade Storm, though, isn't something you're necessarily kind of putting a huge emphasis on because it's more of an eco tool. But knowing that already you found a little bit of value off those, and especially finding a round, just getting on the board is more than enough. You're just happy about that result. But I mean, Converse, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with all this money in the surplus. I mean, I see this can be the 2nd operator bot. And I mean, even then, you're not really kind of looking, or better yet, on the side of the defense, it's the 2nd operator bot in the game. But now looking at it being employed on the attacking side is a little concerning. Knowing that obviously you do have a Clove, you have somewhat of a pseudo-duelist, but they cannot fill those exact roles. Knowing you have that single initiator, and everybody else on the controller is so concerned with trying to make sure to kind of create the entire fighting ring that we're looking at, rather than actually concerning themselves with what's being thrown at them in that process. So with the operator swinging out, and B looking like it's going to be the area of avenue for this plant, it kind of has to be, and it's kind of held hostage to that, knowing that that's the most open where you can find some successful kills. That is if you land those shots.
It's a whole lot of expense that you already know you're going to split the objective in 2 anyways, and they have a harbor.
Right there.
It just feels there's too many walls to try to deal with. Make matters worse when both sides bring in. Seems like only Clemson can really find the success they're hoping for. Arctic gets the refrag back. This one, no, not off towards Puffin. Not off towards Zuko just yet until Avian can find something in return. Avenging the two-player loss they just had. Converse still at that player disadvantage. They know Avian is sitting real close. Look, Mango can just completely deny this rotate out of there.
Standing.
And more chances. The overheal from Avian didn't matter either. And the health from Icy doesn't matter if it gets dropped to 0 from the blades from Ping. 2 rounds in a row for Clemson Orange.
Defuse the spike.
And finally, Dallas, we're seeing Clemson participate on the map of Icebox.
Yeah, I mean, that's something obviously they've needed here for a long while, seeing 6 rounds accumulated in a row from the side of Converse. But, I mean, I can't even talk about the kind of a hill it is to go ahead and surpass and overcome this, considering that we did see Converse just rebound like nobody's business in that last map. This is Clemson's map pick, so all they need is just a little bit of footing, just a tiny bit of grip on the slippery ice to make sure to kind of really trek their way along and maybe get a couple more. But I mean, with the 2 ultimates they have at hand compared to likes of Converse's singular one, that Hunter's Fury is good looks for a lockdown and a little bit of a counter there. But I mean, the Viper's still at play. Is it going to be employed early? Is it going to be employed for a retake? Well, who really knows? No one, especially with that Viper hugging that A side of the map. We saw how the Cove looked earlier, and it just didn't really do much. Especially with the first blood, you probably don't even need to resort to it unless you can keep this train running along.
Quick as they can be for Converse to get in towards the side, but Clemson were able to step away before problems got any worse for them, maintaining every single player. And Icy says, Snowman's been quite a problem for us. I don't want to have to deal with Zuko off this way. Problem is that Zuko's not coming from there or from Orange. They have stepped deep within Hall from Kitchen side, and Avian, they have a chance here, knocking down Zuko once more. Line him up and try to knock him down. But Avian has a chance to shut down the lockdown instead, and it's perfect. Only Avian remaining, but time is not on their side. They're going to run out of this respawn, and it's a very wise choice for Halo Jorge, realizing exactly that. They will step away. They will wait things out, and Clemson Orange, by the skin of their teeth this round, will find success once again.
Yeah, good looks here. I mean, Clemson just understands the situations at hand, adapting around it. But I mean, that one right there, it's one of those scenarios where it's just absolutely nothing but an absolute bloodbath, and you just got to dish out what's given to you. The biggest thing that's really haunting me in this game so far, and the one big contributor I would have to say that easily comes to mind with Clemson's performance so far, and especially this slow start, it's got to be Epoch on that Sova. I mean, let's just be real here. I mean, let's go ahead and bite the bullet while we're at it. 3 and 8, not looking too hot, being the absolute unit on that raise in the last game. I mean, seeing how Ping was playing, you would think that Epoch is the primary duelist of the entire group. And Raze is employable on this map, don't get me wrong, but I mean, a bit of a comfort pick there could do more than the universal selection. As it stands, Zuko's doing nearly all of it right now, over and over again. The second round in a row to go ahead and manage to get that first blood. Problem is, seeing that only duelist can't get out of dodge with the operator in hand. So another awkward scenario where you're on site, Converse running through players, Clemson's trying to play defense, but it seems like everything they're setting up is getting torn down in front of their own lines.
Spike planted.
The big thing about the A side is that speed on the attack is so darn king here. And there are problems still with kind of actively on site. You can play those angles, play those corners to your advantage. That's the strong side of the A site. But if they're too fast, too furious, and they've got the duelist that can out-frag you, it's very hard pressed to find anything to really assist or facilitate any sort of hold on that objective. As Zuko plays this gorgeous 3 kills now, hunting for more. The shock dart can be taken at range, and they try to play very smart by having themselves repelled up on the ropes. There's the shock, and it goes just enough to take down Zuko as they try to climb up at the last moment to deny the AoE of that shock dart. They hold on, and it's Arctic to ensure that despite Zuko's dominance, it seems, they've been coming into in the last 4 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, just knowing that, I mean, 7th round, guaranteeing a lead, that's good. There's a lot of breathing room here for Converse, consider what they dealt with previously. Finally, half going in their direction, looking good, not playing from behind. And I mean, they get themselves obviously another pistol round. It's just really just going to nail that thing in. But as it stands right now, Clemson still has a game to play. They still got rounds to accumulate. They got 2 more shots to this thing. And one of the players having a stinger is a little bit awkward. They kind of obviously work with this exact situation, but one less player is even worse.
Do against the Vipers, but on the A side. Well, the only answer here is to try to take elbow as fast as humanly possible and use a recon bolt for intel. It is a big sacrifice still for Converse, but the value's been gained. 2-for-2 trade. You'd already found the first blood. It gives you a player advantage. You can put Icy in the very back corner and lock down that screen's angle. That's where you'll have Zuko on that harbor to try to make and create a variable in sight lines once that wall starts to dissipate. Those close smokes. You may be dead here for Converse, but your value is still felt and you still have a chance.
One enemy
Stands up,
remaining.
swing. Icy punishes it. The lockdown won't make a difference because it's the boomstick for Icy that does everything instead. Up to 8, a very possible 9th here to follow because Clemson don't have the ego stepping into the final round of this first half.
They most definitely don't. I mean, considering they're already going for the Guardians and the half armors, I mean, it's going to make even an outlaw look like an operator in these kinds of situations. But I mean, seeing what we've gotten out of Clemson so far, I mean, the just shots have not really been nailing in terms of that operator. Well, the Guardians will be able to do anything. And that shot right off the rip, I was very confused about it. It looked like that was just nothing but a mere pinky getting hit there. But looking at what Clemson has to do, I mean, 8-4. Best case scenario for him is it'll be a replication of the last map. We've seen that being come back from before. It's not that big of a deal, but even then, a couple shots off the rip and finding yourself a player, that would have been great. Not even in any real damage besides maybe on Clove there, just a couple nicks, but going forward, I mean, you're pushing this B site, you're looking for some space. I mean, once again, Clemson does not like defending the site, so they just give it.
My ultimate is ready. Welcome to my
Bot trying to play for map control, but mostly trying to play for the Hunter's Fury and the perfect angle for it. Force everyone directly onto site, and even if you can't, you'll get some damage off across the board. Arctic and Icy womboing for one apiece, though Ping does get a piece of the pie before falling. It's the Converse side maintaining that advantage. And the pressure is on. Can you step out from space? You have a chance here, Icy, with the chauffeur. There it is. One more out of them. They'll fall back as quick as can be as Blitz wants to get greedy. Classic in hand. They're flicking with it, trying to look a little pretty, but it's not going to matter. Buffin will wrap through the Viper's pit, steal the final kill, and put Converse to that coveted 9-3. If only it was an icebox, the map where statistically the most curses tend to come true, but can Clemson even pull it out of their bag of tricks?
Well, this is their map selection, so maybe the attacking side of the map is the one that they feel the most comfortable about, and they just want to go ahead and get this map out of the way. I mean, seeing how things are going, this pistol round is what it really comes down to, mainly making sure you can get yourself that 4th and the 5th, and you're down to a 4-round deficit, which is never even really much of an afterthought. So, I mean, a big thing that really does come through as well is the amount of oppression that happens on this A site when your harbor is put into control. The biggest players in the game I can think of when it comes around to setting an example, when it comes around to Icebox, is going to be G2. And obviously, it's going to be Valen on that harbor. Just absolutely fragging. And Zuko has been the top shooter for his team so far. So if you put your harbor in those shoes where instead of playing reactively, you're the proactive, you're the one setting those expectations, creating the pacing, this A site becomes less of an actual site and more of a prison for the defense.
Burst go forward and will claim that space and tries to get a kill with a ghost, but will not do so. Instead, it's Puffin and Arctic. One more chance. It's covered from Copy, and Halo can't go any further. What can Zuko piece together in a desperate 2v1 for the pistol round? It's at least Avian. So sit up. Close to tube, but their head gets cleanly ripped off their shoulders as Icy tallies to 16 kills so far into 13 rounds. What a ridiculous stat line for Converse to have leading their team.
Last thing you want to happen here is another string of 3 coming underway, so you got to make sure to either A, force up, or B, make this next round look really darn good with things kind of equalizing out. Find a couple players, knock a couple guns out, make that economy actually feel like it's taking a hit rather than just making them just lavish in whatever spoils they manage to bring into the next one. Even then, you do see a bit of a force coming through. Clemson are getting to that point of desperation where it's already double digits for the side of Converse, and you got to kind of really buckle down either now or never.
Hope will be held, but the Owl Drone gets enough information for Arctic. You've seen 2, and you heard a 3rd. To wait things out, Icy will queue up their tailwind. Outlaw does not hit the shots they were really hoping for, and Clemson, they did the same thing, it felt like, in the second half, where they forced up on Bind despite the loss. And that didn't pan out for them previously, and it looks like Converse are hoping to have the same statistic hold true for this next map. It's a slaughter. No one for
down
Clemson
A.
is getting anything. Milk Mango may be warranted one single frag, but that's it. And Blitz is not too concerned with their loss of life. It's 11 now for Converse, and the dirty work that's been done can only get worse when you consider the fact that Clemson forced up that 14th round, and now is going to have to pay the price going into 15.
Going ahead, warranting the second time out. I mean, really can't blame them. They're going to be in another eco situation. Even if they do end up winning this thing, depending on how many players live, those are going to be the only real guns that can carry over into the next. So it's one of those situations where you're not only thinking about this round, you're thinking about the next round. And the problem is you're not even thinking about just alone what kind of plans you have to unravel and to get yourself even onto a site to play the game, but you're also thinking about what kind of plays we're going to make based off the guns that we could theoretically have, because you may not have every optimal setup. You may not have the opportunities being given to you to really take those chances, because even then they should have already had that given to them. Clemson had a second round. They had a first round, better yet, and they just completely got slammed by an outside triple stack towards that A side of the map where they just could not hold things down. They had so much of a stack going through where Converse was just able to take shot after shot. And your main man, Zuko, your absolute unit of a fragger, your top fragger for the team, wasn't there to participate. So couldn't trade anything out, couldn't really kind of get that, let that warmth provide for the rest of the team to any degree. It was just left in a 2v1 situation. You can't get this guy in a situation where he's in a 1x scenario, because let's face the reality, Harbor does not have that kind of utility. If you're pushing up into enemy lines, you can kind of create your own little domain where you can, play things out, create these walls, make the players push you on the attacking side. But other than that, you ain't got much to work with.
Aqua float up and a buff. You notice two players escaping back towards the screen, but Avian does not choose to stay there. Instead, setting it up for Tube and taking a shot through with a Sheriff. Doesn't matter when two players line up, though, and feed the beast. Make it a third. One more round elbow. Milk Mango. Is this one sour? No, it'd at least be good for a little while longer, but that little bit, not nearly long enough. Converse. When the going gets tough, you just got to get tougher, and Clemson fail to remove Converse from the equation of the map of Icebox. This looks to be a very possible 13-3 here. And if it's not a 13-3, it's going to be a 13-something unless Clemson can pull off the impossible as they're pulled into another thrifty round.
I mean, even then, this one isn't too bad. I don't think this will actually amount to a thrifty in terms of like the game's economy and the terminology of it. I mean, considering you do have two rifles that are fully automatic rifles, and then two of the Guardians, and then a couple of players do have a full set of armor to play with. It's something. It's a pretty sizable arsenal they're working with, but there's a lot of things that are just really serving as just massive hills for Clemson to climb. It's not just the guns at hand, positioning a Converse. It's the precedent they've set it towards the A side. It's the amount of unknowingness that occurs over here at B. And sometimes if you don't know what's happening, pop an ultimate to see if any of the will figure itself out. As Halo Jorge is able to go ahead and really close things out. At least one pick, but an immediate trade comes through, making sure the numbers don't go anywhere or the other.
Mango sends up the turret for the flank watch, but it doesn't seem like anyone for Converse truly want to try to take that route through attacker spawn. Instead, it'll be fairly direct and towards the objective. This is not planted in typical default, a little bit further out in the open. But you need something like a recon bolt to toss up over the top. Too bad. Converse lost Epoch early. Only have an answer for how to reclaim that space now for this retake. Icy will tap this spike for just a moment. Blitz will find a good frag, and Epoch gets a lot of value when there necessarily shouldn't have been.
Found them.
Blitz is able to shut that down. Milk Mango with the assistance from Zuko. Zuko's got the high ground, and Puffin, there's no chance they'll let you stick it. 4 now for Clemson, and Zuko did so much for this roster.
Conflict is not my first choice,
and wants to keep them alive. Only a few frags, Dallas, behind Icy, who has been everything for Converse. The rest of the team needs to step up to meet them with Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, you got Halo Jorge trying to put in the work, really just trying to contribute here to the cause. I mean, there's just not much you can really do in the stage in the game, being another controller. I mean, it's just look at the bottom. That's your biggest thing. I don't want to point blame. I don't really want to kind of throw anybody underneath the bus, but I mean, when you're looking at your duelists, you're always expecting some level of frags, and obviously it's at that point where even mentally you're thinking, as I said earlier, Epoch could be like, I could be on duelist right now. I could be doing this. I could be that main push for that one, even if it's on a raise. It just feels like we haven't gotten enough weight worth out of that jet to really warrant, say, this is the guy. This is the one who should be holding it down. This is the one who should be setting this expectation of push and kill. So there's a lot of traps over
Turret
towards this B
destroyed.
site. We haven't even really gotten to look at a site yet before already having 2 players cut down the side of Clemson from Converse, who
Carrying
looks
spike.
barely skate in the process. So good looks for them. This could be the conclusion right here, unless, once again, as you mentioned the last one, you keep it rolling. I'm not going to say it'd take a miracle, but to at least make this an overtime kind of situation, or better yet, even make it 8 rounds, I think you're going to have some pretty heavy hitting prayers you need.
And these miracles come true, where will Converse inevitably find themselves up to the 13, forcing the 3 objective map of Haven. Clemson have at least forced a good blood.
30 seconds left.
Bit of an early wrap in from CVU to try to take yellow.
Spike planted.
To send out for the decay. Hope will be cleared away just the same. Maybe, and even finding Epoch on that rotate, but Adrian can just revive.
Player standing.
Welcome to the world of Clove, folks. Quite a nuisance to deal with, and even though you get them right back, it's still another player with a gun up, with a firefight in your face. It's gonna end the same way. 13 out of 4 for Converse. That is your final tally for map 2. And while it was so darn close on map 1, when maybe it really shouldn't have been, all things considered, the 2v1s, the 4v1s that were coming out of nowhere for really both sides, it seems. This one, the victor was almost surely claimed from about round 7 onwards, because CVU had the confidence, they had the momentum, and they kept that ball rolling into that second half as well.
Yeah, with a 6-0 start, and even then, I mean, all those rounds just not really looking together by Clemson ever past that point. I mean, it's just at the stage where you're asking, where did this pick come from? I mean, obviously, credit to them for even getting it on the board. Thank you for doing that at least, because, I mean, it's not very often we get to see Icebox, but, I mean, seeing how they played it, I mean, Converse is just too much of a threat to really kind of say you felt solid on that one. I mean, obviously, don't chalk it for any reason, but knowing that the selection was a little bit awkward. The duelist wasn't really in the game, which is fine, which is fair. But even then, Epoch, once again, being on that Sova, I feel like Epoch, even if you put Epoch on a raise there and then put the same exact composition almost, just replace even then a Gecko instead with the Sova on somebody else doing that, and then run that singular controller. And I mean, just seeing how it could work and knowing what was available there for Clemson after map 1, I had such high expectations for them, thinking that obviously they've always been at least in the middle of the pack when it comes to the upper echelon. And this is kind of one of these maps and matches where they could finally kind of tip themselves over and say, look, we're different this season. We're looking a lot hotter. We can really kind of shoot with the best. But in a map like that, I'm not going to say it degrades any of the steps that you've already taken. I mean, you won that first map and you had a pretty solid lead in it for the majority of the time. But you got to be able to close things out. And this is the point where if map number 2 isn't, map 3 better be.
And what matters if your map 1 victory, who cares if you win it out, even if it's a 13-0, if you lose the next 2 very swiftly and in a way that doesn't really favor you for pretty much the entirety of that game, like it was in map 2. Will that hold true for Haven? I doubt it. I think it's still be 13-7. I think it'll be final score for either side. It genuinely could be.
Fair.
If CVU start shooting themselves in the foot and start losing their own, losing against themselves, like it kind of looked like they were doing for a large portion of Bind, I think we very well could see Clemson come away with this victory. But they're going to need to talk things through throughout this break. The timeouts weren't doing enough on that map of Icebox. They'll have a little bit more time to do this. We'll be back after a 5-minute break. Do not go anywhere. Stay tuned. Let's see how this third map pans out. There's one thing you can 100% say, Dallas. Haven is no safe haven. It is a slaughterhouse for so many of these teams in collegiate, and it tends to be that way through both halves. It's going to be a lot closer. I anticipate that Icebox. If it's not, I'll eat my words and just retire right here. But Haven is
Oh, that's
100%. You just want to retire, Dallas. Any chance to do so sooner. Haven tends to be just a ridiculous map to hold on to, whether it's on attack, whether it's on defense. If you hit the A site, you can get it retaken quickly. You hit the B site, it's so hard to hold on to it unless you have your post plant set up correctly. A little bit of util can keep you away from playing it for so long. And that C site long hold, you got to take a rush, and every team knows you have to. What do you think the agent selection is going to look like? I expect a billion ciphers because it's Cypher's map. KJ just doesn't really fit in as much anymore.
Right. I mean, Cypher isn't much of a bold pick. I was thinking more so on the duelist front if we were talking about a little bit of diversity. And honestly, I mean, we look at the neons and how those are being implemented a lot here on this map just because of the rotates and how quickly they could occur and how you can actually have those players go out onto an island and still feel like they're simultaneous with the rest of the squad. And even then, still, I mean, the initiators are more than likely to be seeing a breach just because, I mean, looking at those long lines of sight, those long lanes that are the entries, your E will just, your fault line will cover a lot of that essentially for free. But knowing how everything else goes, the duelist, I don't know. That's the biggest toss up because it's not only just the actual agent that we see, it's also the player who's going to be on it. Because my biggest thing is going to be, I mean, Clemson. I want to see really how they approach this because we did see Ping on that solo jet when it came around to Icebox. Didn't look too hot. And while and I mean, really, I think going previously and looking over at Bind and seeing what was happening, Epoch was, I'm not going to say single-handedly the reason they won that, but looking at a 13-11 and looking at that stat line, at the end of the day, you could definitely probably attest the victory to that alone.
Yeah, I mean, technically Ping had, what, one more kill, I think, total, but the value that Epoch brought and the value of those kills. Yeah, the value of those kills that Epoch got were unbelievable. Ping, consistent fragger. Epoch stood out. That's the big difference. And on Haven, you need a player that can stand out because everyone should be consistent. There is no reason we should highlight a player for being consistent on the map of Haven. That should be the default. You need a standout player. And your standout player on a Neon, probably the best thing you could possibly ask for. But this is a Clemson going for that double duelist composition. Is this just something they started to do recently? I need to check their VLR and see if they've just been doing this throughout the majority of their past matches last few months because I don't know, maybe the step up for Ping into the roster is just saying, hey, we have to have a double duelist. This player's too good to step under a role that's not duelist, but I feel like that's very limiting to not have, you know, a step back approach and letting Epoch kind of step up. You got two players that could do that. Let them kind of facilitate and help each other out a little bit more. Either way, the case will be told. Both teams have locked in Omens for the controller, the Sova for that initiation and that information. The lack of a Cypher for Clemson is a little bit jarring, but that's because they have that double duelist composition where you have both Neons, the Jet in return for Ping, and then, of course, the Breach. The lacking thing again on Haven for Clemson. How's that going to pan out when you're replacing a KJ instead of this roster? I don't think the initiation power is going to be enough with just a Sova.
Yeah, it's...
especially defensively.
I mean, let's see. I'm trying to do some mental math here. Really, just kind of I mean, it all feels pointless now, you know, after the day. But seeing how things are gonna go, I don't know. I do like Clemson's comp a little bit more. I think that's the definitive. I think anybody could really just agree with that. I mean, it's just nothing too crazy. It's kind of standard. But I mean, sacrificing. I don't know. Yeah, even then, I think if you're gonna run the solo Sentinel, you and I mean, we were in agreement when it comes around just having the Cypher. He just kind of provides more. He slows things down, and it feels like the only real counter also to a Neon. And knowing that this map is so oftenly bringing out Neons and like the higher level of play, it feels like you kind of have to have it tripwired and just go ahead and shut that thing down. But speaking of speed, speaking of shutting stuff down, plan on B already looking to be attempted, but not really going to unravel as we already see Ping able to go ahead and get a first kill here. This is the guy we talked about earlier, needing to wake up early, need to be consistent throughout everything, but while Ping ends up dying in the process, they're still alive. Epoch, the other duelist to work with. Can that pressure still be exerted? Can it be constant? And well,
Standing ahead.
Still time to figure that out.
Oh, great pips off the recon book. Lacking that breach. It's going to make that B side very difficult to hold on to defensively. I kind of was alluding to that earlier. We saw the danger for that. Converse were able to keep Clemson off of B for just a moment, but immediately afterwards, you lose your breach, and Clemson could have easily just decided to commit towards B if they wanted to, but They went to C. The team went to C. They found a first blood there, but since then it's not been all sunshine and roses. They've had players pushing daisies instead.
Last player standing.
Just only going to get
One
worse.
enemy
Epoch's
remaining.
allowed to go crazy. Gotta steady your aim, Avian!
Yep.
But Epoch knows how to slide into space and steal yo frag. It's Clemson Orange finding that first kill, that first round, and trying to use that to capitulate a point forward.
A double duelist actually kind of put in some work for him. Able to go ahead and get things rolling relatively early. Epoch already finding a third of the kills that he's under in the entirety of the last map. I mean, it's just kind of that thing that you want to happen. You want to see a player, when they've looked good and they drop off, it hurts so much more than just seeing them not start well. I mean, obviously being a highlight in that first map, not looking too hot on the Sova pick, and now right back being in those duelist shoes. I want to see some spotlights. I want to see this player wake up. I want to see Clemson at least keep it close, because even if we ended in 13-11, I wasn't going to have an issue with that last map. But 13-4 is just unexpected after seeing
I have the spike.
13-11 that occurred in the map prior.
Why are we looking like an album cover as they all stand outside of B, just waiting toward B? It's like a Valorant album cover. Please, whatever you do, don't let it be KSI. Just think of it. I beg of you. Still every player for Converse stacking up on this B side. They'll have one player closer towards garage, but you're still actively defending B. It's your controller. They can send a smoke in through anywhere. But Clemson know that they have space, and they will start to slowly prowl up and claim it and take this A site for their own. This is what Avian can say. I have a camera there, folks. We'll know if they're coming. And with that recon bolt over the top, they can start to sing out, hey, guys, I think they're stacking up on this A site. We should start to get ready for this retake, as the dark covers do go out, do separate the defense of Converse, and Converse will need to decide, do we hide within these dark covers, or do we extend and push out? They do so.
Spike planted.
Huge relay bolt, but Epoch got done before they can make their own use of it, and that's why you've got teammates. Suko gets 3 to secure alongside Pig.
Yeah, I mean, huge secondary round there for the likes of Clemson. Holding on to the majority of those weapons, looking just strong, defined, and just solidifying themselves, and obviously on the board, but better yet, just to maintain the lead and look pretty comfortable in the one following after that. We're not looking at Spectres, we're not looking at close range weapons, we're looking at Guardians, Bulldog, and that's kind of synonymous with what we've seen the entire series so far in these second and third rounds. Carrying guns and understanding that, well, while Spectres can be good in some hands, like maybe a Neon per se, everything else, I mean, you want these Guardians, you want these Bulldogs, you want to be able to just take these long lines of sight, even if it's a hit you're taking right then, because that secondary round should be much cleaner with guns that hit much harder. But already slowing things down, a couple dark shrouds and kind of, you know, just things to cover up the map here early on to put Clemson in their space for a second, trap them back in their spot, make them slowly trickle out over time, and you've seen a bit of that kind of being alluded to.
Right here.
Other side actually breaking door finally, Zuko. Thank you. Be a lot easier for you if you choose to do so. Epoch, the only player to have died in the last round, will not have a weapon to work with for this next. And they're waiting just on the other side of that tripwire. Not yet ticking it off, just to try to get that early information, or maybe the lack of information from giving it away. But Epoch starts to step away, and Avian finishes the job. And Converse have a player advantage, but Avian is trapped. A spot that they cannot reclaim, and a weapon that's now been dropped with little to no success. Only Epoch, that's only a sheriff, and little tidbits of utility. I'd have liked to see a little bit more from that position, and maybe a less play to die sort of scenario. Flashes go out quite well, though, from Blitz to try to get some safety and assurance towards long. 2 players stepping up from sewer towards lower. With all 4 now for Clemson having to step onto site because time is running out. You'll have to step into the loving arms of Converse's defense. And it's not so loving when it's 7-6-2 piercing your torso. It's the first round win for Converse.
Get on the board. 2 on fashion! Thank God!
It's normal!
A normal game of Valorant!
Go.
Between these two teams. Check the ground, feel for it.
Gotta go.
Sure hell isn't freezing over as we speak. Oh, I never thought I'd see the day.
Oh my goodness.
It's one of those things that just feels so refreshing. I mean, obviously, people, you get to the point where it's like, no, we want something different. We want something different. No.
Tradition. Is different.
Tradition. Must keep everything the same. 13-11 for the result. I don't care how it happens.
Oh, too bad. We've already broken away from tradition. Look at Clemson's lineup.
Oh, true.
We've already broken the mold so
Converse
consistently.
13-11.
Who's Clemson's coach? I need to have words with them when it comes to their agent selections.
It's not terrible. It's not that bad. It's.
I mean,
respect it with
I'm
the-
genuinely curious for what's going on between
Link
Epoch
is the
and
one
Ping.
I'm a little more concerned about, though. Like, I mean, honestly, I would be like, kind of get rid of the Omen, replace it with a Clove, put Blink on that, and then
Yeah.
because I mean, Ping obviously like duelist can
I have the
frag,
spike.
but isn't really taking the space like a duelist usually does. I don't know.
It's super hard to make use of a Jet though on this map as well, especially when you're comparing it against a Neon. They're both trying to claim space in the same exact
Jet's
speed.
more useful on the defense though, without a
Yes.
doubt. I
30
mean, you have
seconds
eco
left.
rounds, you have the operator potential, which I mean, Ping, not to talk about their operating potential, but hasn't also been that hot there either. But I mean, there's still time. Maybe Haven, you feel more comfortable with the lineup.
Spike planted.
Bolts in through the dark cover. He will quickly step away. Too many shock darts, too much danger.
I'm out of here.
And IC will have to refrag Arctic. That relay bolt not really going where IC expected it to either. It's a little unfortunate. So how good that was previously for IC and for Converse. Sorry, for Epoch actually. For Converse. Buffin's
One
doing it all by
enemy
themselves.
remaining.
What a select set of shots. Wrapping in from long. Clemson were not ready for the retake in from that direction. And Converse usurped this site control for their own and will get this defuse going through quite wonderfully. With almost all of it coming off the back of Puffin having uncontested through long, despite the fact that the fact there should have been a camera or something for your Sentinel to lock down that rotate back in.
Yeah, a little unfortunate of a circumstance there, but I mean, happens to the best of us. What's going on right now, though, is I mean, just happy to see a relatively even game. We're not looking at a lead right now. We're looking at a tie early on. Nobody's in the 6-0 or 5-0 lead. And I mean, after 2-1, anything's doable. Anything's open, and that's the beauty of the game. That's why you want these close matches. You don't want
Get out of
comebacks.
my
You don't
way.
want surges
Here we
of
go.
rounds. You don't want strings occurring over and over again. You want to go
Shotgun.
relatively consistent where it
Suck
shows
it.
that both these two teams are bringing the best they can. They're reacting appropriately. They're, coming up with things appropriately. Anytime a lead comes through, it's just
Spike
purely
down,
because
C.
somebody stepped
One
up.
enemy remaining.
Who else more than you talking
C.
around like this? Thrifty round coming through off the back of an ultimate, and well, just zap through everyone. Go scavenge your weapons. Go get those upgrades. And find yourself.
I mean, even if Epoch loses their life, when you all engage simultaneously, somebody's going to clean up. And that cleanup drops a weapon. In this stance, Clemson Orange didn't have to worry about the weapons dropped. Epoch just steps up where needed, gets all the frags with the ultimate, and shows that maybe the force can in fact be with Clemson to reclaim control of
Right
that
here.
lead. Now sitting at a 3-2 stat line. But if you're going to play an eco round, you're going to play a thrifty round with those sheriffs alongside that ult, do it well. And Clemson Orange have 2 ultimates to save them credits. It's no longer a worry of a tour de force in Avian's back pockets. No. You've got the Palpatine ult. You got a Blade Storm. Bring out the Gordon Ramsay chef. Knife it up. Been a whole lot to help and assist, especially when you're able to do that in round 5. It's unbelievably
Running
impressive
low.
for those 2 duelists. But Ping doesn't get such a lap of luxury this round. Arctic instead, and IC says it's my turn to shine. I'll pull out my own ult. I'll take down my doppelganger, and we'll put Converse up ahead of the competition.
Yeah, right back at you. They see your own medicine going on here, but seeing wants to follow up. Got to see whether or not Facilities get a plant down. I mean, 3v5 is still very much doable. You just got to consider weapons at hand. Not too much to work with. The ult for the Neon now being gone, but a rifle acquired by this specific individual. So there's another ultimate being invested in a round like this. Wow. Yeah. Is there any info with that besides
Spike
audible?
planted.
It's another dry fire Hunter's Fury, like we saw last map, and I harped on. I hate seeing dry fire Hunter's Fury.
One enemy remaining.
Great thing though, Converse have so much utility and more with that breach. Your initiation power is just tenfold stronger, and Clemson didn't really know how to parlay against that. Flawless round for Converse on a thrifty. Sheriff's on the board. They only have one ultimate that really gives them the thrifty. That being Icy's. And yet still, they stray away from what was expected to be the result of having Clemson now get 2 in a row to a back and forth battle, as we really like to see for the map of Haven.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, just good looks right there. I mean, answering right back instantaneously in almost a cleaner fashion, considering the resources at hand and knowing that even then, the utility usage that was taking place during that process was just so much cleaner. But I mean, going into something like this, it's
I'll
right
show
back to that
you,
kind of
scary
even
Omen.
Steven kind of situation, just besides the guns. And I mean, Clemson is a team that we've now noticed that you can't really sleep on them when they don't really have everything at hand. But maybe they could get at least an upgrade in the process when you look at this massive crossfire.
this, I'm outta here.
Absolute barrage of bullets with those lines of sight. Because, I mean, see, try to slide through, do whatever you want to do. That's 5 players shooting down range. That's a gun for your efforts.
Oh, and Arctic just trying to bunny hop out of dodge. There's no escaping the Sheriff. Eventually, it will tip and tap its way to a successful frag. And Blitz can alleviate some of the pressure that's weighing on the shoulders of this defensive Converse, but the damage has been done. You only brought back 1 in return. There are already enough proclivities to worry about it elsewhere. Halo Hore trying to go over to the C site with the From the Shadows. It's very hard pressed to find full usage of that ultimate on any map, truly. But when you can, that's one of the chances to say that's perfect. And the Hunter's Fury even here, that clears out every piece of Cypher utility that would have been on site, which honestly, you clear plat, you clear Cypher utility, and get your players direct onto site. I think that's very valuable here for Clemson.
I'm with you. I can guarantee the audience is like, oh, of course. Converse shoots one, and they're like, what's going on? It's like, that one feels warranted. We have explanations behind it. Feels good, but even then, the Converse shots are looking even better. Fault line to go through running that wall after shot to follow it up.
One
These guys
enemy
are
remaining.
allowed, and there's nothing you can do about it.
It's
Essentially
just the
fish in a
difference of the
barrel.
breach. It's the difference of the breach. As a player, every time I face breach on Haven, I want to beat my head against a brick wall. There is no one more suffocating to play against than a breach who knows what they're doing on the map of Haven. And I know it won't matter at my trash rank, but that will hold true at every rank. Breach is king for the map of Haven. It's like talking about Brim on Bind. The value for the instantaneous smoke placements, the value for the stim to get in towards the objective. It's everything for Breach. There's not a single piece of their kit that does not hold value. And Converse show it and more. They used it well in round 1, actually, to keep them away from the B site. They used it well in this last round. We saw them find value for it the round prior. Clemson need to find an answer for why or how to avoid that breach utility, whether it be the way they did it in round 1 by extending in for the frag onto the breach and just trying to make sure they find this location of this agent and deal with them in an expedited fashion. Or they just say, hey, we need to be very aware of the fact we can't sit inside of these cubbies. We can't sit around these corners. They have that wall-to-wall util. They have that initiation power. We just got to play a whole lot smarter. And if you're Converse, I think you just hide your breach away, tuck him into a corner and say, we need him for the retake. Every time we'll have him, it's pretty much a go-to answer to say we'll win it out.
I mean, I could agree, but as we saw in the last map, I mean, it seems like these teams just don't know when to really kind of separate themselves up and play for the retake, or rather actually just go right up front and play the aggressor. But, I mean, they're meeting each other in terms of blow for blow here, at least on this map thus far. Going 1 for 1 for 1, finally a couple strings. I mean, obviously, Clemson not really with the advantage here, as Converse has won more what you could call legitimate rounds. Meanwhile, the score line is substituted with the 2 rounds of the pistol and the 1 following. So, not the best looks in the world for Clemson in terms of what they can accomplish with these rifles. They had some great starts, but the finishes always feel like they're a little bit lackluster. And usually trends in teams, it doesn't only follow suit just with the guns on a round-to-round basis, but on the bigger scale. Teams don't like to finish very often, very consistently, and this could be a curse that kind of plagues them if they end up just kind of keeping this rolling.
You have these little micro battles, these 1v1s, like we'll have here for Epoch and Arctic. Actually, they turn it into a 2v1 for some reason. Again, you're lining up, and we hated that on Bind. Please don't continue to do that. You have these little micro battles where you have these initial first blood engagements where you're trying to poke for information, force players back, get your chance into sight, and then it becomes that giant macro battle, the ultimate one that determines that site control and or the attempted retake coming back from that defending side. And Converse has just come out better on top and better for it when it comes to these macro battles. And I feel like Clemson are statistically a little bit better at getting those first bloods and finding a little bit more impact on these approaches, which as an attacking team is very warranted. It's about what you would expect, especially with as an aggressive of an agent selection as Clemson happens to have. We've got a retake scenario now on this A site. Very slow rotate, possibly in, as you did have you use your From the Shadows to get back towards attacker side spawn. but you really need to make sure to destroy the lockdown, and Puffin finds the value for it. He gets 2 kills on top of it. Lockdown, Milk, and King.
One
What more
enemy
can you ask
remaining.
for? Go flawless as well, why don't you? Hunt down Zuko, shut them down. There is no Fire Nation here. It's Converse taking a 5th round.
Yeah, it's just an absolute show here for Converse and what they can really get done. I mean, Clemson, even out the back of a timeout, you're thinking that, okay, maybe there's something. There's some shred of hope. But, I mean, it is just Converse stepping up. We've seen this team. We talk about the caliber of what they can accomplish. And, I mean, it seems like here on Haven, they are just able to do that. Obviously, the composition in terms of the agent selections isn't going to be much of a case to help out Clemson in their process here. But, I mean, Converse just, this is the team finally starting to warm up, starting to show us what these guys are really made of. While the score differential is going to be probably a little bit better just because it's Haven, not Icebox, knowing what's going to be going down here, seeing what this team's going to accomplish. I mean, it's on the defense, and they shouldn't even be succeeding like this so far. So knowing that it's the attack side where they really get the ball in their court, and they're the ones taking all the shots, even on defense, it seems like they're not missing.
If you ain't missing, you killing them. That's one of the win conditions.
Kill.
Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like Clemson right now are finding that win condition in their favor. 2 kills already off the board in Garage. Well, this one's about to be shut here in my garage.
Go, go, go.
Lording over the 2 corpses I've now left there, and
Last
luckily one
player
of their own
standing.
alongside Halo Jorge's approaching through the B sites. And there's Zuka. Last player standing. They were phenomenal last map on Icebox, but they were really the only one for Clemson that was showing what they were capable of. And you need a lot more than just one player to win a map. That scoreline showcased exactly that. Another scoreline for Converse continues to tally in their way 4 in a row to reach the 6-3 stat line.
That just, once again, just going right to work. None of the business. Get the job done, get the shots off, and find yourself rounds. And even then, I mean, just try to obviously hold off the spike in the meantime. Not even the defusal being in factor there, considering that you saw an absolute mode through before it even occurred. So knowing that we're seeing them getting a little more aggressive, seeing them kind of fall more into shape of what we should be seeing on the attacking side, they're essentially transitioning this game into an attacking side on the defense. While they started off slow, they played more kind of standardized, and while they've accumulated more and more rounds, they've gotten comfortable saying we can bring the fight to them because we're going to have to do this anyways, right? Might as well go ahead and start getting warmed up. It's the same exact case that we see with some Jets finding the operator in the later rounds of the attacking side. Trying to go ahead and get a feel for what's going on here, understand if people are going to start overextending on shots or find themselves in angles or just kind of completely giving themselves out. And Commerce has understood that Clemson has nearly done everything they want them to do.
Contestant off towards B would maybe be a primary point of concern if they can figure out where the breach of Blitz is. It's not where the first fight goes down. Instead, one that actually finds a frag is a very early play from Puffin to extend it down C long. Claim control over the Sentinel now for Clemson Orange. Puffin hears the player count going forward. The paranoia was successful, but you got to get more than that as the cloudburst onto site is not yet shut down. Ping can just make the turn, but not before Puffin gets their one and their much needed kill to keep the pressure onto that C site for the time being. Just a little bit slower. There's that rupture forward from Blitz. The flank from Arctic and nothing panning out as Icy is trapped with a paranoia and a dark cover going against them all alone.
Spike planted.
The ping on Plat. Halo towards Long. And the Jet just waiting for you to peek. They want Icy dead, and Icy would have to pull off a miracle to survive this. And Clemson won't let them have it.
Nice little start, giving them so much breathing room for the rest of the round to just kind of unravel in their direction. That's what they want on the side of Clemson. They want some early picks. They want to make sure things are going their way very early on, so the rest of it kind of feels like light work. But issue is, I mean, that is only going to happen so many times out of 10. And honestly, I mean, I'd give them nothing more than 3, considering what we've seen so far out of Converse. I mean, knowing that still only 2 of those rounds was actual full rifle, full buy rounds coming through. One of them being yet better, yet a thrifty off the back of Epoch, just making a tear through of all these Converse players that, I mean, realistically, that's the first real round that they've won without any ultimate expenditure that just kind of feels like it has the biggest impact in the world, without any kind of obviously thrifty shenanigans going on with it, looking for these closer angles. It just feels like legitimate raw gunfights where the utility usage felt better, the kills came through, and the round was successfully found. But we got to see this really start to happen over and over again. This has to be a trend. It can't just be an exception.
Clemson will try to prowl around for that first blood. Patience, the name of the game.
Tripwire destroyed.
The That's both tripwires simultaneously destroyed for Avian. That's a rough way to have your utility step away from you. But it won't keep the player count alive for Clemson. Avian's able to secure at least one. Converse will reallocate their defensive positionings and the structure for these players as much as they possibly can in the short time that they have. Dark covers will go forward. Paranoia does not manage to find a single player, but this puts Blitz in a very nice spot to contend with. Then the dark cover, maybe a chance to swing out of it. Audio cue the player stepping away, but you need your teammates to swing forward to let you go crazy. That's exactly what they do. Devastation on C. See what your demise brings to you. It's a 7-4 now for Converse, who's not just guaranteed an even half Dallas, but guaranteed a positive one.
Yeah, I mean, they've already deserved it, though. I mean, look at their entire team, what they're accomplishing so far. It's one of those scenarios where, I mean, obviously your duelist is doing great, but somebody is. And not only do you have one, I mean, I'd say you got two, even better yet, three with Blitz. Even then, not even being, you know, second, third in place behind the 10 and 5 that is Puffin. You still see the just amount of contribution that is occurring in this game is just looking astronomical. Let's probably doing a lot more damage to the utility there, obviously, because we can't really do that. Everyone else just kind of throwing things down range, getting some effort out of it. And as I'm talking about utility and its usage, and the damage is done, Arctic already at the top of the board here for the game so far, so you can't really go any further up.
Avian's still stacked up inside a garage, something where Clemson have not found any success of securing, and even when they do, it's when Converse has fallen back and lets them claim it. They know that totalitarian control over a single option for a site take is not the way to go about it. Your primary concern is to either keep them off spike or retake it well. Your extension does not need to keep them out 100%. It just needs to buy itself time. And Converse have played that wonderfully. How will that translate to the attacking side? Time will tell. That time will very shortly come upon us. Converse hunt for their 8th round, and they are on the edge of being able to do so. This one already being in a 5 versus 2 now.
Go!
With Avians wrap around and a complete pincer upon this Clemson Orange attack. Icy just has to let them run at them, and it's a rolling thunder on top. What has Mango got in front of them? It's way too many players. And Converse will reach that 8th tally to double the stat line of Clemson Orange.
Switching sides.
Outstanding looks here. I mean, first half coming to a conclusion, double the score line, seeing that Converse, they have, once again, as I mentioned earlier, gotten themselves into a case where their mental was on the attacking side, but their spawn was on the defense. Why even worry about the side if you're going to be running up lines? You hear the audibles, you know where the feet are coming from, and you just go ahead and meet them at the line of scrimmage and just start making absolute mesh out of them. So, seeing how things are going, I mean, I'm expecting a pistol round to be a bit of a toss-up, but everything after that, Converse, I mean, this is the time where Clemson can actually kind of, once again, put everything back onto a ground zero. Find a couple bloods, slow Converse down, because if they win that first round, that second round, we've already seen a string of 5 and 6 rounds unmatched here tonight. I couldn't be surprised or even ask to be surprised if I do see something like that again, because now at this stage of the game, I mean, it started off slow, started off nice, and just very, very quaint, I'd say. But now, at this point in the game, Converse definitely feel like we're seeing the team that we're expecting to see, to put in the least.
Yeah, we weren't really happy with their performance being a match.
Down.
They've shown us now with the major success map 2, and now the start of the success chain. What they're made of. I do a cue for Icy. Do they know Epoch's in this corner? Oh no, this is not so good. Sneaky. Hit your shots, please, Epoch. Getting 2 for free. Icy still playing off towards short. Epoch hunting for a 3rd. Will be fed it in Arctic. No chance you're letting the team live that one down. Icy's on site, but your team is dead. And you still have no clue where Epoch 100% is. And you almost gave them another kill.
30 seconds left.
But this could turn into what we saw on map 1. The disastrous 4v2 on Bind. As Icy will fall. And you've got every weight on Puffin's shoulder to find 2 more frags with pistols. Now Mango does it from within a smoke.
Blind, yeah.
And Clemson secure the pistol round. What a round of all rounds. That is Valorant at its finest.
Yeah. Just throwing it out there. Seeing what you can accomplish. I mean, great, obviously, for Clemson once more. Epoch waking up. I mean, being this player, you're in a Sova's shoes. You're not even feel confident enough to do that in the first place. You don't have the utility to survive, to really hold yourself down. You just got to land those shots perfectly every single time. Epoch excels when you give that man the tools to slide around, jump around, just find any element of movement to work with, especially when you provide maybe some damage or at least a crowd control to lead to something to feel marginally better. Speaking of Neons, looking at movement, for the love of God, Icy, I need you to shoot back eventually, but as long as you're serving
Spike down, C.
Well, there you go. Getting enough for the rest of the squad to get onto site. It's a 4v3 kind of scenario. We do see Arctic with a Guardian in hand, so I mean, 2 players dead, 2 guns upgraded. Let's see if they can get done with it, because I think, honestly, it could be led to disappointment on the side of Clemson.
Last player
Converse's
standing.
hands, but Clemson, thankfully, is holding to the test of time and making sure that things don't get out of hand.
There's where that Neon, the fast lane comes up and creates a fast lane for you to quite literally extend into that seaside for defender spawn. My favorite thing about Neon is that defensive retake potential only on C and the attacking potential for the take on A long. Besides then, Jet finds more value on the defensive side, a little less value overall on the attacking side, but you have both of them for Clemson. You have that generally solid defensive duelist. You have a C-sided defensive duelist. If Converse continue to try to take this C side, I think that they'll start to realize there's a little bit too much potential in the back pocket of Epoch, and they want to make sure that they avoid those dire circumstances. Maybe a little bit more potential towards B to brew up, and a whole lot more towards A, as long as they can lock down that site with that rupture, with that util from your breach, and just finding a whole lot more from Blitz's back pockets. They extend in towards site. They use their own Neon to find the first blood.
Trade looks here to open things up, at least on the side of Converse. I mean, have all the space that they've asked for, have the spike going down as well on the back of it. I mean, even then, we get the overcharge available from that Neon if you want to go for this retake. But as a 4v5, you got to feel comfortable with everything. You got to make sure the environment's stacked up for you. And even then, while you do have that ultimate now, once again, I talked about the environment, the circumstances. Players are all all putting those post-plant scenarios, and their guns are going to do better than your fingers at that distance. Going down range, the outlaw can help you out in that process. Spike's already at half. Surely the audible came out to let them know that. What else is there to really make of it? Quite frankly, nothing. Clemson is not standing. 4 players on Converse alive at the end of it. That all they need to do is get that spike down, and as I mentioned, play that range, because they played it better. Nobody tucked away. No breach to worry about for an aftershock to funnel you out. You're just sitting ducks, hoping something is going to come your direction, and once it does, it's free shots.
I guess that's the problem again with Clemson's. They have the duelist to be able to retake site well, and you can essentially treat Epoch's fast lane and even the relay bolt as a way to create space and claim that space, but you don't really have a great initiator for the retake. You don't have a way to force them away from these angles. You don't have destructive utility at that distance and range. If you try to send out a nano swarm, it's just going to get shot when it hits the ground. There's really no chance for that to try to go forward. Shock darts, you can really just kind of shimmy 2 steps to the side and be just fine. You got to do a lot with the very little bit you have. This is where you go guns up and get everything you can. Arctic, 2 into sight. Zuko meets and matches their margin of victory, but Clemson still have that player advantage.
One enemy remaining.
Back in return once again. Only Avian remains. Spike is claimable, but not in the easiest of places to do so. And Avian will take the wise decision to take a couple steps the other way, meander their way in through B, maybe see if they can claim Link, very possibly towards defender spawn. They may go all the way. Yeah.
You got all C to play with. There's going to be a certain point when enough suspicion arises in these Clemson players of where exactly is this coming from with this double stack. No way. They're literally lining up.
One enemy remaining.
Oh my God.
You forget. I always play high stakes. My ultimate is ready.
Oh my God.
I can't. 35 seconds! And no one even looked a single time, Dallas. No one looked a single time.
Turret out.
No one even looked to B.
Revealing area.
You have Ping there watching. Oh, no, sorry, that was Epoch at the time, watching Link and watching the garage window. They didn't even peek to B. loss.
I'm out of here.
Bloods for both sides, though, as it's a big rush for Converse to the A site. Epoch once more, and we'll begin.
Spike
Give it a
down
chance to
A.
gain it before dying immediately afterwards.
I know exactly.
Their job
where
is done.
you
They're
are.
happy with it. You'll use your neural theft to figure out where every player is standing, and that will also give you the intel that Halo Jorge is wrapping around, so Avian will start to set up their util. And actually just stand there with the gun, and they're losing that firefight despite all the oddities of that engagement. Halo Jorge has gotten through it along. And Avian knows they have to pressure in here. The team will handle themselves on the objective. You've got to handle your business. You got to get the dirty work. And Halo Jorge just had no chance to survive with only a classic there.
One enemy remaining.
This is your chance, Bazooka. Time's already no longer a matter. Get some kills, drop some weapons out of their hands. Maybe walk away with the weapon if you possibly could. You already have your ultimates. Nothing past that matters. Converse will reach their next margin for victory. They wanted double digits and more now, Dallas.
Just really driving home what they've accomplished thus far. String of 3 rounds. We saw the 2 to start off with going in Clemson's direction. And once again, when the rifles come out to play, well, Converse starts to wake up and understand that, well, this is now the game that we play. So 3 ultimates to their name. The neural theft, I like what they did there. Obviously investing it on the site, waiting to see whether or not you'd have another shock dart maybe coming in your direction, seeing whether somebody was up in heaven, kind of trying to go ahead and deny that plant, checking for free space.
Spike
But
down A.
space is not free. It never is, never has been, never will be. Well, you can use a Hunter's Fury sometimes. You can cover a lot of it. So nice little exchange there. 2 players going down for the cause, but even then still Converse once again just having a leg up. Having that overcharge on site, having a player up in heaven now as well. I mean, you got just full allocation of this third of the map, not just the
Spike
spawn,
planted.
but everything surrounding it. Seems like they got under control here.
Gauges to cut the sight lines and buy time. He's still got smokes you could even place afterwards if you truly wanted to. The longer that Clemson wait to engage into sight, the more likely the utility will be there. Paranoia sent from hell. You now know where they are. They step into a trap wire. And Converse are very quick to actualize all potential that's there. Match and series point, Dallas.
Match
12
point.
and 6, your score line. And Converse are facing off against a Clemson Orange roster who once again cannot bring everything to the table in what could very well be the last possible round.
Yeah, I mean, seeing really how they've gone about this. I mean, Converse is, as I mentioned, I mean, there's just not really too much to elaborate on them now. It's Converse. It's the team that you've seen over the past couple years. It's the program that's accumulated its notoriety just through the program of Valorant. But even then, I mean, knowing what they've accomplished, knowing what they're doing, I mean, sure, they've taken losses. Even then, not just in series and games in general, but also in terms of maps tonight. I mean, fine, it can go their way. We were expecting maybe Clemson to come out swinging here a lot earlier than expected. And while they did do that, while they found a pistol round, they found the one after. Ever since those rifles have put in their hands, it has just been a different game. As we get that spike down back towards the C site, will Clemson learn their lesson? The last time this C hold had occurred, didn't look too hot for them. And even better yet, they didn't have a flank watch ready for it either. So a 3v3 situation, Avian trying to get the wrap around here. Nobody to flush out these players inside of these cubbies. And even then, the aggressing player getting knocked down. This may just be as good as done.
Avian has a chance to shut down Milk Mango and unfortunately will not find themselves victorious. That's why you got Arctic nearby.
Imagine if I died. Right.
Once more, Milk Mango. Imagine if I died. Well, there's not much of an imagination needed for it. 13-6, your final tally for the final map. We had a 13-11 in Clemson's favor on map 1 for Bind. And since then, it has been all Converse kicking in high gear and no longer shooting themselves in the foot, leading to their own loss in the first map. Icebox dominantly theirs, and it follows suit with the same lap of luxury, same distance of luxury over on Haven for the third map.
I mean, even then, it's super weird to see that even then we don't get much of a score differential on the map of Haven compared to what we saw on Icebox. When it felt like, honestly, Haven lasted a lot longer, rounds drew out a lot longer, just the entire series. It almost felt like it was closer to, say, like a 13-9, 13-10 type scenario, but not close enough in terms of skill differential to be a 13-11. there was just a couple things missing here and there. And knowing that even then, still at the end of the day, it was just more of a matter of patience. We didn't see fast, really close rounds that were just occurring off the snap of fingers. It was at a point where even then, teams had places to retreat to, but even then, there's a lot more just utilization of the map. It felt like players were playing ring around the rosy, actually working around those sites, actually exercising their territory control. Which in Icebox, it felt like half the time Clemson couldn't even get going. At least they got plants here. I mean, at least they found themselves control. At least we had to wait for these retakes to just occur in general. So I mean, Icebox felt a little bit of a speed run. Bayern was a little bit of a just insane map in its own right, knowing that Clemson's just opening up the entire day like that. And then Haven, it just feels like a little more standard of what I was expecting for the first two maps to kind of find this thing to close out a lot quicker.
Yeah, a lot of problems on Icebox. Maybe the first half difference, the stat line being already so wide, they look at it and say, hey, this is kind of irrecoverable. It's what Icebox does. 9-3 is really tough to come back for some teams mentally. Clemson didn't get the best into the half that they wanted, and Converse just bury that further and further, only letting them get one round for the remainder of the game. Not good. Final one, though, on Haven. Honestly, like you said, it was a lot closer. It felt a lot closer than it was. But I think ultimately, when Converse was able to step on over to the attack, they just kind of treated every defending player on that site like a speed bump.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just what Converse does with the rifles, though. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
team that we're expecting. Doesn't help that Clemson. I mean, we can't berate them for their selections. They know what they're most comfortable with. They know how things are. They have their own system. But when you look at a team like this, I mean, there is a standard setup that you see over time. And I'm trying to just basically warrant the idea for what they were going through, knowing that that was 90% going to be what their entire composition was going to be. We knew that the Neon would more likely come into play because we're at a level of play where we look at the professionals, see that Neon had gotten those buffs. She still looks not overtly strong, but still can have that potential to be anywhere on the map. And even then, as the Neon player on both sides, neither one of them had to exercise that right or exercise that pressure anywhere else. They were just able to utilize it with their team because they knew that they didn't have to draw attention anywhere because rounds would just go faster if everybody was on site to kill right off contact.
Unfortunately, that was the only game that happened this week either. There's not even any points to make about the other round matchups or anything like that. This was just a makeup game for these two teams. I think it was a pretty darn good showcase for being the only game of the week, at least letting it be a nice 3-map series, giving us a wonderful afternoon to go for it. But with that being said, that's all we have here for the SEL. I've been saying it. I think Clemson's a dark horse in the tier 1 block, and they showed that in map 1. They got to make those improvements for map 2 and 3. Can they do it? Time will tell, but we know that CVO have shown everybody they sit very happy with where they are, and they want to come back for their revenge of their loss they had in week 1. That's it for the SEL, though, for this week. Stay tuned for more. We'll be back next week with even more Rocket League and Valorant action. We'll see you guys then.